Okay, so let's see what Lerio thinks about the Balance Council. Lerio is very competent at an analysis. Yes, I agree. He's also very level-headed and objective. He doesn't. He tends to not not necessarily follow the consensus. He makes his own. And that doesn't mean I think everything he says is 100% correct, but you know, I think it would be silly to not take his comments seriously. He's one of the least biased people I know when it comes to Gwen. And he plays at a very high level. Like, when I say bias, I mean emotionally biased. Everybody's going to have bias based on the rank that they play at and the decks they play against and the time zone that they're in. Like, as someone who plays across time zones, because I play a lot, since I stream like 8+ hours a day, nobody else does that. I play against, you know, the European players, the American players, the Chinese, and the Russian players. Like, so I think I get a more varied sense, and also I play piles at low MMR, and I know the meta up to around 2,500 usually. Above that, not as much. Kareem says I am biased for kicker angling, for example. Yeah, that's fair. To be clear, like, I think a lot of us have a crush on Angleem. Come on, but yeah. So let's talk about Lerio's post. If you're not already following the site, you should. And also follow Lerio on Twitter. Gwent, the Witcher card game finally reaches the GWENTfinity state, announced at the end of 2022 year. Game would no longer be updated with new content. Blah, blah. Okay. So this is some background. He talks about the Balance Council tool, about his own thoughts about whether it's exciting, and, you know, how are people going to vote. And then I think we're going to get Lerio's analysis. Oh, wow. He actually goes through every archetype that he thinks are currently like meta. Ogoroids, Arakas, Itter Sabbath, White Frost, Fruits Werewolf midrange. Okay, Golden Echo Relics. Yep. Deathwish Dagon Succubi. Yep. Tattering Loradoran. Absent from this are Vampires. Oh, below the meta, but still fine. Renfree Regis Vampires, Necker Vampires. I disagree that these are fine, but it's Lerio did well with them, I think, last season, and so he feels like they're viable. Crestworm Kiki Necker, yep. Morntut Renfree Relics, yep. Fruits Midrange Necker. Okay, Kashi, yep. Sabbath Abuse deck other than Arakas, Itter, Tugo, and then ... Other than Arakas, so Tugo, Gurney, etc. Yeah. Below meta was still, yeah, like these decks don't need a buff. Kashi maybe. I don't know. And Kashi, like these decks could use a little bit of a buff, right? Because they're a bit, I mean, maybe not this one, but these do. Because everything should be this level. And there's also archetypes that aren't playable that could use some help. Like, you know, Insectoid Swarm or something. I guess that's kind of what this is. Necker Vampires with Unicorn plus Chironex. That's Lerio playing against Svalblood and racking points. But, you know, to be fair, like, Svalblood has trouble against multi-engine. Always had, because they can't remove everything. And also, notice there's no Care Trolled on that board. Care Trolled really changes things. So my guess is Lerio had red coin. On blue coin, this deck is way worse. Kashi Morntart. Yep, this is the Miamon deck. And it's very point slammy, so of course it wins against Ball. Monsters are in distance behind Gwen 1 with many decks worth trying. None of them, though, possess a cutting edge and enough versatility. Yes. The average of the top 5 FMR scores on monsters was the lowest among all factions in the September season. Yes. Slightly below ST. So ST was also kind of weak last season. But the other three, like NG, NR, and SK. Why is SK? Oh, because I have my colors inverted or whatever. SK were like high, and then Syndicate was just Imba. So I'd be curious to see what would have happened if Syndicate had, like, what we'll see this season, although it's not a competitive season, but yeah. The main weakness of monsters is no hard to counter abuse decks, like Erlin, Shoop, and NR, Patchala Fury, Self-Win SK, or a Sesame Bison SY. There's no need to fill this void, though. In Gwent, my favorite monster decks are Orgars because of a mix of control tools like endpoint slam opportunities. No other monster deck has such a spread of winnable matchups, yet many possess higher point potential. Yeah. Amongst unexplored monster possibilities like Rat Swarm, Beast, or Control Glusty Warp, or Arcusarm are hard to improve in GWENTfinity. They simply lack enough fitting cards. On the other hand, Ruin +1 power boost seems promising and impactful. There was a Ruin Necrotome deck around when Dragon Infusion Bug existed. Persistent +2 on each consume, which says that consume archetype is not far from being played if only most important numbers. Yeah. This is why I think consume can be a valid, viable archetype in monsters. And right now, it's not. Oops. It's not really viable, but like the best way to make it viable is, in my opinion, a Ruin buff. And Lerio seems to agree the same. Same with Slizzard, yeah. This is a +1 power boost, could be a refreshing and impactful change, getting along with Ruin boost and maybe making Consume Fruits a bit more playable. In second order, Desert Banshee and consequently Haunt may get same 1 power change, yes. Like Desert Banshee +1 and Slizzard +1 would be other buffs to that archetype. Like I said, Ruin buff would make Haunt more playable because Haunt gives you 2 consumes. Shouldn't the requirement for voting in the council be stricter? I don't know. Like, maybe? But, like, any requirement is gonna discriminate against some worthy voters. Like, there are people whose insight I'd value, like JMJ Wilson, who don't even play the game right now. So, I don't know. Forcing them to get to pro rank just so they can vote. Or play their 25 games, I guess. But they probably just want to get to pro rank so they can stay in pro rank for next season also. Do it once every 2 months. Well, but then again, if they care enough, they should play. I don't know. The requirements are like, I wouldn't have done Balance Council this way at all. I would have made it so everybody can make suggestions, and then we vote on suggestions, not picking +1. Like I would have had it possible for everyone to suggest power, provision, armor, and then number changes in the text of the cards. Like if they have to get an intern to spend 10 minutes on each of the 60 cards that's changed, that's not that much, you know? That's 10 hours a month. That's not a lot. Like for a game that makes money, like you can afford one guy making those changes. Heck, I bet you people from the community would do it for free. If it meant we could get like wholesome change, like, and only the changes approved by the community would go through, right? Whatever. Mid and Napa cards are small buffs in a great deal. Varina, -1 provision could bring new control tool for rather solitary Necker vampires. Yep. Similarly, it would be nice if Unseen Elder, Detlaf, Katakan, Protoflare, and Gale were good enough to see play in meta vampire. Yes. But that's second order of important and late impact. While Handrider Strauss would be harmless at 4 provision costs, even if auto-include, decks would become more consistent, while also Morntart gets indirect buff. Yeah, I agree with this. Necker +1 power is quality, yes, but also... see? People made fun of me for this. But, like... this is so heartwarming to see, like... literally all... like, I feel like 80% of the stuff so far in Monsters that he says should get a buff are stuff I also said should get a buff. A controversial one because +2 per turn, 4 power, 4 provision engine could sometimes get out of control. Remember Witch Apprentice, Imperial Marine, blah, blah, blah. Also note that such 2 power Neckers could be played in Fruits of Yuskirth and instantly proc Fruit. Or hold back with testing these or less dynamic time. Similarly, Mice provision on Nilfgaard is considerable. Yeah, there you go. Like, I had Neckers and then I said, let's wait, right? Because Ogres are strong. I think the fact that you can remove them, like turn a 2 per turn engine into a 1 per turn engine with just 2 damage is enough of a counter to not make them problematic. I just think Ogres are very strong enough at the moment. They're not too strong. I think they're below tier 1 slightly. Better in tournaments where you can coin abuse than on ladder, but certainly not I think this Witch Apprentice, Imperial Marine are a bad comparison. Because to remove those, you need, 6 damage. And to remove Neckers, you need 2 times 2. Or just 2 to cut them in half. Like, if you hit a Marine for 2 damage, you've done nothing to its points per turn. So, Lerio, I'm putting you on notice. This is a bad comparison. Disagree. Controversial take. That's right. I found something to disagree with Lerio on. In the long term, Harpy Egg plus 1/2 power could bring some fresh air. It would indirectly improve Marilorn and Necromancer's Tome. Yes. Harpy Egg is like 9. It's a conditional 9 for 5. It's just been power crept. But I don't want it to be plus 1 or 2 power because then it would, like, it's one of the few cards you can play in a Sabbath deck that's below the 4 power threshold. So again, if you're watching this, Lerio, I would prefer that you buff the, like, I think it's, if your goal is to give synergy to, or buff Marilorn and Necromancer's Tome, buff the Harpy itself. Although we can't buff tokens. No! Why can't we buff tokens? Okay, never mind. I guess this is the only way to buff it. Or we could make it 4 provisions. Conditional 9 for 4 is not that different than Oxenfurt or Enraged Cyclops, or it's like 1 point less more than Brockvar Warrior, but that does damage and it can be used to control. I don't know. Comes to nerfs, I think monsters don't deserve any. In the later stage, maybe Incubus put -1 power, which is now plus 1 provision, only to discourage such binary. I disagree with this. If you want to discourage using binary decks, you should. I think you should target AQ. They just don't want to target AQ because AQ is used in 2 competitive monster decks that don't have any like abuse, which is Sabbath and which is Death Wish and Arrakis Sabbath. That's why I think Lerio probably doesn't want to target that. But there are no binary cheese monster decks that don't use Arrakis Queen, but do use Sabbath. Like Sabbath Vamps is not a binary cheese deck. That doesn't use AQ at all. And you shouldn't nerf that deck just because of the sins of AQ. While that would make me sad that like Arrakis Queen is nerfed for those other decks, you could buy offset that by some other buffs to those decks. Like you could make Kiki War Hashling 5 power at baseline. Or you could make reduce the provision cost of you could if you make AQ 11, you could reduce the provision cost of another Death Wish unit like Rotfiend to compensate for it. Yennefer of Vengerberg to 9p is a controversial option to boost Arrakis Swarm Kecker, as this card sees no play. I'd advocate this idea. I think a big part of why that card sees no play is because Nilfgaard can coup it. At least that was a reason back when I was playing Swarm in the olden times. It was a card you could only play last, but Nilfgaard could also double cross it, so you needed to put it in your deck. And also at 9p, they can Torres it now. So I think as long as Nilfgaard is well represented in the meta, like Assimilate, whether it's Enslave or Double Cross, Yennefer of Vengerberg will be like a loose con against them. It's also not like a guaranteed points card. I think this would be equally controversial, but Bone Talisman at 6 provisions might be a better way to boost Swarm decks. Or no. Triss Telekinesis could use a provision buff, right? Because Triss Telekinesis is 11 provisions right now. And it gives you a bronze from your deck or opponent's deck. So it's like very RNG, unless you played Rune Mage. It's not really in any meta lists other than like, I guess my Alchemy deck that I don't think is meta, but I think it's very strong in that deck. Because it's like a shady vendor for 11p, right? Oh, sorry, yes. Thank you, Master Ghost. Maybe I should do this. Okay. That way I can control what you see better. Maybe give you gold special cards? We can't make those changes though, God. This is all in the context of GWENTfinity and the Balance Council, and we can only change things by power and provision. So, I think Trish Telekinesis could use a provision buff. Curious to hear what you think. Nilfgaard. Following NG decks are about meta level and do not require huge buffs. Rend-free soldiers, battle station to call soldiers, yep, enslave seek assimilate, aristocrats brawl, mid-range shoot. Bit below the meta, but still fine. Cloggers, Tucson Knights, Big Ivo, Hyperthin, Marine Spam Aldrich, Puppeters, Hospitality, Old List, switch a Sire plus Roach. Yeah, you get rid of Sire Roach. It is Golden Necker. Master of Puppets. Yeah, this was like a Lerio pile that was very annoying to play against. Basically, if they got last, say they won. And even if they didn't, filter plus Master of Puppets was very annoying, and it had a lot of tempo because of just Toussaint tempo is very strong, and there's 2 Blight Makers. Now, of course, if you missed your stuff, like you missed your Golden Neck or whatever, it was very weak, but used to hate this deck, yeah, same. I mean, I played it too, but like, oh my god, playing against it was so annoying, because you were like if you bleed, they could defend really well, and they have a Siri Nova, and like round 1, they could like win on even if they drew Blight Makers, and if they didn't, they could commit very little and still be fine defending your bleed. It just seemed like a very hard to deal with deck. I don't know how it would do against like current Syndicate and Patch of Fury and stuff. Those decks are much stronger than any deck that was in the meta back when this was played. And there's a lot of decks that don't have good bronzes to steal. Like, there are decks that only play golds in round 3. NR comes to mind, right? But this would be really good against, like, all the fruit spammers. All the werewolf people. Casual 6-card round in the Nilfgaard Mirror. Boost by 32. Oh my god. Played by faction, top 2500. Nilfgaard is by far the most popular Gwent faction on Pro Rank in every season. That is true. Every season. Every season. Like, you can go look at the last 12 months, and Nilfgaard will be the most popular play rate in Pro Rank. Hands down, guaranteed. So the people, like, crying crocodile tears over, oh, Nilfgaard's going to be unplayable, Nilfgaard's getting over-nerfed, Nilfgaard... What are you talking about? It has literally been the most played faction in all of like Gwent history as far back as I can remember, with some minor exceptions. And even in the months that it sucked, it was still the most played. Like, so refreshing. In spite of only 4th best high-end average FMR, well, because it's so popular. Obviously, it's got mill and clog and shit in it. Nilfgaard's a beginner faction, easy to pilot, as has all the RNG and OP stuff. First craft article. Nilfgaard was, as always, the most popular faction on Gwent product. No wonder that the black faction is the main point of interest for most of the player base. Yes. Patch 7.1 butchered the cultist archetype by working a fawn so that he could be played from the deck only when 4 flanking soldiers are present on the board. Cultists are no more. They are countered too easily on the competitive level and would be run only by memers who like to see big numbers and don't mind instant conceding whenever the Eternal Eclipse gets countered before Chapter 1 is triggered. Yep. Like, literally, Cultist has now been destroyed. And I'm sure the pro players are happy, but I'm sad because, like, while I would have preferred that, like, I would have preferred that they nerf the exponential scaling of Cultists, which is the real problem. Like, people always said, can't we just, like, stop the Ifan abuse? And because they saw that as the reason why Cultists were viable. It's true that without a Cultist wouldn't be viable, but, like, that's not good for the game. You don't want to kill an entire archetype that has so many cards in it. We're not getting any new cards. We need to make all the cards that we have be decent and playable. Yeah, Lauren. I mean, you can see in my suggestions I said nerf battle stations, nerf marine, and both by 1 provision. I don't like nerfing marine by 1 provision. I think it's too weak at 6p. But I don't think -1 power solves any of the problems that it causes. And for Slave Driver and Sergeant, I think -1 power is fair. I would be happy with like a 5 provision 2 power Sergeant if 6p is too expensive for a 9 power one. But it's like, it's kind of tricky because we only get, like, using two of your votes on the same card is kind of counterproductive because they've said only a card can only be changed in one way per patch for some reason that I don't understand. And also, like, you're using 2 of your votes. Those are Marines with 3. The reason Marines with 3 power doesn't solve my problem with them is that that doesn't affect the Ramon spawn of it because it has 2 armor. It doesn't affect the Vigo spawn of it. It doesn't affect the Slave Driver spawn of it because it starts at 1 power anyway. Like, nerfing the base power doesn't affect Vigo and Slave Driver. So that's 3 Marines that have not been touched at all, if all you do is change its base power. The other problem with it is, like, it doesn't address the ceiling of the card. It would still be a card you have to answer the turn that it's played. And having cards that your opponent has to answer means that they can't develop their own engine and their own game plan. So while you're playing your Vigo to play a Marine and he answers the Marine, and then you're playing a Slave Driver to answer the Marine and he answers the Marine, you got a Vigo and a Slave Driver on the board, and he got nothing because he was answering your stuff. Usually without any engines being deployed on his own, right? And like you Ramon one, well, you got 4 points. They can fall like. And then there's factions and decks that just can't answer an infinite number of like 3 or 5 power cards, and like they have to use the removal on like maybe one of your assimilate engines or your tallest. They have to save their tall punish now for your Marines because they can't answer all of them, and 1 or 2 of them will get through and be 15 or more power in a long round. And it's like, I don't think nerfing them by 1 base power affects the ceiling case where Marines are so high, right? 6 feet the Marines seems a little overkill. I agree, but like I would rather that card not be playable than be playable and be too strong, because it's not like Nilfgaard has any shortage of good, strong, viable 5 and 6p cards to play. It's not like Monsters where like there's literally no good 6ps to play other than Self Eater. You know, and maybe that Ogre, but like all of the good 5p bronzes in Monsters are archetype specific. So every archetype has like 1 or 2 5 provision cards that it can play, and then nothing else. Like there's a huge dearth. Whereas in Nilfgaard, I have Remedies, I have Assassination, I have Amnesty, I have Mage Torturers, I have the Purify, which could use +1 power. I've got Slave Driver, Magni, I've got, and these are just the top tier cards, right? These are just like the absolute best cards in the game cards. Magni, Slave Driver, currently Marine. What else is it? Nilfgaard have at 5? Dame, Pikeman. And most of these cards are usable in every Nilfgaard archetype and deck, right? Like that's a huge selection. So if you take 1 selection out of that by making Marines to 6 and it turns out that that's too much of a nerf, the downside is low because they have lots and lots of other cards. But if you take, like, for example, Incubus and make it 6 provisions, like that's like half of the viable 5 provision cards gone from Monsters. Oh, Blightmaker, Mage Assassin at 5, sure. Even the Marines off the radar and you won't suffer. There's plenty. Exactly. That's so like. I think a lot of the discussion and disagreement around these council choices comes down to like the limitations of the balance council itself. Like in an ideal world, I think we would all agree on like Marines. Maybe they just lose flanking and stay 5 provisions, and that's perfectly fine. Like it's moving a card up in your deck and getting 1 per turn. Heck, it could even go down to 4p like it was on release, right? If it lost flanking. Or maybe it only boosts like until it moves the card to the top of the deck. So you pick something at the bottom and you get a 2 point a turn engine, but it eventually stops, right? Or also if you play in Calvite and then you pick a 4P for it to move up, you're trading some of the consistency the Calvite gave you for points, right? To me, that's so much more interesting. Like if it stopped, if it only boosted until it moved the card to the top, that's so much more interesting than the current version. There's a lot of other things you can do with Marine to make but none of that is possible through the Balance Council. So we're stuck with the choices we have, which are imperfect choices. So we have to think about the votes that we have in the broader context. And the fact that Nilfgaard has so many other 5 provision playable cards is the broader context of why I'm suggesting you go to 6P. I don't think nerfing it to 3 power is going to be impactful in the way that we want. Like, it will not at all keep Marines from being in every deck. That's my prediction. It will just make like Nilfgaard's win rate go down versus control decks, which is like, the Assimilate's already not good into heavy control. It just isn't. So, like, it doesn't need a nerf against that. There are matchups where I would really love to be able to get my Assassination, Joust, Boohurt in round... Yeah, exactly. Like, you could play with Calvite and use Marine as a way to move certain cards up and get points for the fact that you're moving a card up from the bottom of your deck. And then once it reaches the top, you stop getting benefits. So it's like, either it's giving you like... I mean, yeah, in a Calvite deck, you either get the full benefit of Calvite sorting your deck by provisions, or you elect to get a lower provision card up the stack, and then you get boost out of it. But it stops at some point. You know, like, it puts a ceiling on the card that's dynamic, that is in a Calvite deck, in the hands of the user. In a non-Calvite deck, it's like, oh, I'm getting my battle stations. Okay, I can stop getting points because I'm getting battle stations, right? You either get the cake or you get the ice cream. You don't get ice cream and cake. Even though that combination is both delicious and delightful. The Dame is also probably 5P. Yeah, but like, the problem with Dame is that it boosts during the opponent's turn too. Or that it's like, it can boost too many times per turn. It doesn't have a counter the way the Fletter does, right? You could argue 6P would be more fair because that's where Messengers and Fletters are, which are analogous cards to me. But then, like, you're not going to drop the Dames from Aristocrats. So all you're really doing is nerfing Imposter Leader by 2 points, right? Like, you could make Dames be 6P, or you can make Masquerade Ball be 16 provisions, and it's like has the same effect almost. or you can make Philippe 10 provisions, and it's the same thing. And so, like, there are certain cards that are cornerstone of decks, and so nerfing their provision doesn't do anything. And nerfing their power isn't good either, because the card already has a low floor. And so I don't really know how to fix Dames from being so dumb. I think it's one of those things that we're just going to have to live with. And if Aristocrats becomes too strong, maybe we just nerf Philippe instead. Right? Or Rompali. Or Rosa. Or Art Fane, you know? Basically, make it so they can't have all these, like, Philippe, Rompali, Catriona, Rosa, and possibly Emir and Usurper. All of these cards, I know not every ball deck has all of those, but even if they have like 5 of those 7, every single one of those has to be answered immediately. Same with Thirsty Dames or Pikemen. Like, you must answer, I mean, you should probably answer Thirsty Dames. But if you don't, if you don't answer the Pikemen, they'll also get 2 points a turn. Like, there are a lot of must answer cards in that deck. And so if you nerf the provisions of Philippe or Rompali or Rosa, you make it so there are less of those cards that can be fit in the same deck. I think that has a better impact on balance than making Thirsty Dame 6 provisions. Dame is very, very tricky. They can't work themselves, need additional engines, and they can be saved on deploy without Art Fane or Pikemen or battle stations. So the card itself not so oppressive. Yeah. Or Masquerade Ball or like Emir. Yeah, there's one absolute unhealthy thing about them, ability to boost when an opponent gets stats. Yes. Like, if your seagulls come out, Dame boost by 3. If you're playing Symbiosis, Dames just boost like to infinity. So I don't know. That's why, like, and pick up Mastigos. I would really like you to stop harassing me by telling me about the delicious shawarma you're about to have. Yeah, so you know it gets plus 3-2 Dames on deploy. But at least you can control that, kind of. Like, you know. Whereas, like, your Seagull's coming out. Oh, I killed his pikeman. Now his Dame is 7 power. Ugh, that's so frustrating. Like, I killed one of his units, and as a reward, he got plus 3 points. Okay, back to the article. Personally, I hate this change because along with cultists, most of their cards like deacons, master ceremonies, or initiates become dead slots. Yep. Like without the scenario infusion, all the cultist cards are terrible. And like CDPR in their last like non-GWENTfinity change could have actually tried to do one thing right, like just actually spent some time on it. Maybe even talk to Lerio about it and ask him what his solution would be. You know, how to make cultists not so busted without making the scenario answer or lose. Do you have Heatwave? Yes? Okay, cultist loses. Do you not? Like, it's so binary and terrible. Like, I can think of other things. Like, instead of making it so the numbers increase every time you play a bronze, you could make it so that number is increased every time you play a cultist that isn't infused. And make it so that the chapter 1 infusion, or make it so the chapter 1 infusion only goes to like recently like only goes to infused allies in hand deck or whatever, instead of every cultist. Like, you could make the chapter 1 infusion weaker without making it completely like auto lose to Heatwave. Reading through Reddit and other Gwent media, NG seems like the main offender. Jan Calvit makes them too consistent. Soldiers like Imperial Art Cavalry get out of control too easily. Battle stations are unconditional 48 for 11 if played into Double Marine. Assimilate always plays opponent's cards for more points than them. Taurus first form is too high tempo and unfair because of possibly stealing 3 goals with no counterplay. I thought he might be memeing, but these are just like legit things. Enslaved leader, I believe, is too strong. How many? Okay, he's memeing. I'm supposed to play my wholesome reavers. 7 skills over 20 points to just do assimilate engines on board and kills everything. I think Stefan's fine. Local Forts is too versatile, so are slave drivers. They could lock everything with Alba. Okay, yeah, now he's making fun of. Unconditional 10 for 6 with annoying +2 armor. Often used to tank damage. Have I forgotten something? Right, aristocrats. Pure evil, unlimited thirsty dames, unconditional 30 for 5. Pikeman plus Day Throne Arbalest combo. Each impacted bleach shreds your guts. Masquerade Ball, killing your best. Okay. And third time with Rosa Edna. Okay. Hope you detected a pinch of irony in the community and the NGS. Yes. Nevertheless, it is hard to argue with some of these points, and it is easy to understand frustration when facing decks like soldiers or enslaved with unoptimized casual decks and gameplay. Main Nilfgaard decks deserve small, reasonable nerfs, especially in Renfrey Soldiers deck I played last season to 2693 MMR. Just seems too solid in every aspect. This deck is so silly. Like, how do you counterplay stuff in this deck? Just hope they miss like their key cards, which they can put on top with Marines. Like, I'd like to see it nerfed by power rather than provision because it's still the best, the most harmless and relaxing Renfrey deck I've ever run. The problem with the nerfing all cards listed above at the same time would lead to a balanced disaster. At the competitive level, NG is okay balance, as last season data shows. But at the same time, Lerio, I would say that Syndicate being good into Renfrey Soldiers and all Soldiers decks artificially lowered this last season, and with Syndicate nerf, like, you could just, if you played without any other changes, with just the Syndicate nerfs and no other Nilfgaard changes, I bet Nilfgaard would be top, because it's the second most played. Sorry, second highest winning, right? Oh, sorry, this is the top 2500. This is top 100. top 100, it's here. But again, I think that this had a big impact on this. And like, even if this gets 2%, it becomes the best. Not counting Syndicate, right? So I think, like, for example, when the right after the patch that nerfed Ixora and Novigrad, I asked Kareem, because he had played some line pockets. I said, hey, how's the deck now? He's like, or not line pocket, but he played some Vice, and I asked him how it is. He's like, it's noticeably weaker now. I even lost to Soldiers, like, because it was such a hard counter, such a favorable matchup for Syndicate into Soldiers, that like the fact that now he almost lost to Soldiers was a big deal. So I think that this number was heavily impacted by the dominance of Syndicate last season at the top level, where the top 100 were competing. And I say this as someone who got both NG and Syndicate. These were my two highest scores last season, so I'm not like someone who didn't benefit from that. Let's forget about Syndicate, which avoided deep enough nerfs in Gwent 11.9. Nilfgaard was the second best faction in top 2500, but only fourth in top 100. Playing against Nilfgaard is often counterintuitive, requires experience and good enough decks to not lose consistently to perfect hand guaranteed by Calvi. Yes. So argument about why better not to hurry with NG nerfs in the balance council. How about buffs to this faction? Sandor buff to 9 provision seems like a good way to unleash new Golden Necker decks. I don't think this would be a good idea. Sandor's a very good card as is. And Sandor and Golden Necker, oof. That would be a very frustrating deck to play against. Because like Abduction already gives you so much good tempo. And if you have Sandor with unicorns, it's kind of... So right now, Syndicate isn't as far impressive as it was. Pretty low win rate, but it's early season, Lauren. Syndicate always has low win rate early in the season. Terrible performance in the open? Sure, but everybody had, like, the meta shaped around Syndicate. Still, almost every Russian I know outside of our little community wants nerf Sesame to 6p. Yeah, I don't want to nerf Sesame to 6p at all. I think that's overdoing it. I knew what you meant. NG is the best, the faction that allows most creativity as it is, I think. Most creativity. I don't know. I think any faction that is given busted bronzes will have the highest deck variety. Because those bronzes will carry any deck. Like when spotters were 5 provisions, I made a cultist deck that ran spotters and Traherne and Mata and Tibor. And Tibor is considered a shit card, and I was winning lots and lots of games with it. I got it to 2,500. Hey, Colin. Spam Nausicaa 16 times really creativity. Like, I mean, that's what I do. When I see a card that's really strong, I'm like, can this strong card carry my favorite meme or archetype into viability? Like, Morvat is really strong, so I stuck it in Vamps. And I'm like, second, like, if I miss my Regis, I get Morvat. Hopefully I draw either one or the other, addressing the consistency of the deck. And because I have 2 things that need to be tall punished, maybe I can go Gluttony even without Lasse. It wasn't enough, you know? Or like Werewolf. But like, when you have cards like that, they'll be even stronger in an optimized deck. And so that's what everybody's going to judge it on. And the fact that it's like making other less played archetypes playable is... Like, Care Troll in Alchemy gives them some control. Does that mean Care Troll shouldn't be nerfed? No, Care Troll should be nerfed. But I wish Alchemy had some control that was, like... You know, I wish there was, like, more Blue Boy Alchemy synergy. But Blue Boy is, like, 6 power, so if you ever leave it injured, it's, like, a problem. It will get removed. So maybe Blue Boy needs to have, like, base power of 10 and damage itself on deploy by 3 or something. Maybe that's, you know, we're base... Some sort of higher base power, but damage... Kind of like Great Swords. Even though that would give Bloodthirst and armor to pirates and, you know, Bloodthirst decks. Similar idea, but amongst neutral cards would be Living Armor. Provision buff costs, buff the 9 costs. While helping mostly dwarves, Golden Necker with Mahaka Marauders. Such changes also an attempt to make memes with alchemists more rewarding in a Golden Necker deck. But why do we need to reward alchemists? Why do we need to make alchemists more playable? It's not like there's any, like, it's not exactly a dynamic or interactive deck. All it does is, like, do you have a lock for this Living Armor or a way to tall punish it? Yes, you win. Do you not? No, you lose. Like, Olgierd and Living Armor are the 2 cards that, like, you would play with alchemists. Like, trying to make Nilfgaard Golden Necker isn't played because it's bad. It's not played because non-Golden Necker is better. It's because Torres is so much better. It's because Artaud is so good. It's because, like, Stefan is so good. It's because Battle Stations is so good. And all of those cards are so good because I feel CDPR made a consistent and concerted effort to make Golden Necker less widespread because of all the complaints about Golden Necker, which is why literally like 80% of the cards released in the last 6 months make non-Golden Necker decks better. Look at all the new elves. They're all above 9p. Look at Tugo. Like, look at all the new ogre cards. They're either 4p or like way high up, right? Like, and the 6p ogres aren't really like playable without the 4p ogres, and like the taller cards. So like King Trum is so good, you don't want to play. Like, King Trum is like the reason to play Ogroids. Same with like Angus and Reordain. Like, those cards are so powerful that they just kind of sap any incentive to play Golden Necker. If you nerf the hyper polarized cards, Golden Necker becomes more viable. Or if you buff like instead of trying to make 10 provision cards 9 provision, why not just buff the 6, 7, and 8 provision golds and bronzes? Like, to me, that's a better way. Like, you know, there's those Toussaint cards that nobody plays anymore. Or, like Lydia. Make Lydia 6 power, right? Or, like the 6p Aristocrat that purifies everything in Nilfgaard. Or, there's just a lot of mid provision golds that in Gwent are so neglected that, like, you could buff. Somebody suggested buffing the Prophet, which I find a really annoying card to play against. But at the same time, now that cultists aren't viable anymore, making Prophet playable in other decks might be okay. Like, NG needs more like 8 provision cards than Traherne. Like, 8 provision is such a black hole in Nilfgaard. So buff those cards, right? Make some 9ps 8p. Make some 7ps and 8ps and be better, right? It's hard because, like, Kanta's 7p and I don't want to buff Kanta. And Treason is 7p and it's fine if cheesy. Like, you don't want to make it 6p because then it'd be too played. Like, Treason's kind of a BS card. Let me pull up. There's a good card I like her. Yeah, Lydia is like it's like Trish Telekinesis but better in every way. If you look at Nilfgaard provisions, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are all good cards, or, you know, played, and this is toxic. Maybe these two could get a power buff. I think these are very good in Golden Necker. I don't know what this could get. Could be made better. But a power buff certainly doesn't hurt. The Witcher Trio could get a buff. Like, Witcher Trio and Crone Trio are like very good for Golden Necker because they help you use the provisions efficiently. Fur Card could use 1 power. It's almost never played anymore. But Golden Necker might want to play it because Golden Necker decks really value consistency. This card could use a buff. This could be made 6 provisions. This could be 5 power. Or 6 provisions. Like, a Golden Necker deck would love to play double Blightmaker, and this would work really well with that. Or Constructs. I think not, and just to be clear, I'm not against Living Armor being made 9 provisions. I think it would make Construct Golden Necker more playable. But, yeah, all close, like the Witcher trio, I know people hate it because it locks everything. But maybe Control NG should be better at Control and less good at Tall Punish. Menno and all the other tutors could be made 7p. I don't know. Swears could go to 7p. Isbell? Isbell doesn't mill. Right? I know it was played in mill. Does it work if the... Yeah, it says if opponent's hand's is not full. So... But you use this with Stregobor. Does Isbell's Stregobor still work? Yeah, Glennis is a problematic card. It's got too low a floor and too high a ceiling, and we can't fix those cards with provision power nerfs. Power changes. God, there's so many toxic cards. This could be made 7 provisions. Doedric sees no play. Even in Hyperthin, it sees like almost no play. You could make Lydia 8 provisions or Zarthisius 8 provisions, I guess. I'm just saying, there's a lot, like, this is how I would buff Golden Necker. Rather than taking 10 provision cards like Sandor and making them 9p. And we don't want this to be 9p. This could be 9p, I wouldn't care. Then you could play Golden Neck and Soldiers. I don't think any of these should be 9 provisions. None of these. Or this. Well, I just hate this card. I don't think it would be busted at 9p because it sees no play even in an Aristocrats deck. But that's partly because it's a machine and a ship that does poisons. And like, it's kind of awkward to use. It needs a home. It's not that the card isn't giga strong. It's just that Archfane makes it not a card you want to play. Is Stregobor... No, I thought they fixed the Stregobor thing. Yeah, Fauna 9 seems reasonable. Didn't they change Stregobor recently, like Stealth nerfed it or something? I guess not. Stregobor's still a thing. I mean, if people start to play, just make a 10 provision and call it a day. Like, this card should not like this card should say if both players' hands are not full, blah 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 blah, but it doesn't, so we should just kill it. Like, Mata would be bullshit if you could play when an opponent has 10 cards. Everybody agrees with that. Why does this timer 2 work? I know that it becomes a combo and it's very hard to... You know what? Part of it is that. Like, drawing, it's so inconsistent because you have to have both in hand at a time where you can make sure your opponent's hand is full. But yeah. Anyway, that's my view on Golden Necker Nilfgaard. I don't think Sandor to 9 is a good change. What about you, Kareem? Simless is fine. People play him in Alibridge deck. Doedric. You're talking about Doedric. Simless is not fine, but the fix to Simless is to cap him at 2 cards and then make him cheaper. But we can't do that. Oh, he even says Richard Trio. But what should it be? I have no doubt that the only unpowered one of these cards is Seret, and he drags his colleagues down. Which one is Seret? Seret. Oh, damage unit by 2? I mean, you could make this 7 power. Or 6 and 6. No. This needs like 2 or 3 changes to be made good. But then again, the 3 Crones, like the consume one, isn't as good as the other ones. But they kind of fixed that by making it gain charges. I fear 9P Sandar would be... Yeah, I agree. 9P Sandar would be, like, a problem. Kecker Abduction Seer with location. Yeah. Yeah, I played something similar. Like, you can put a card in their deck and then play it with Abduction, right? Witcher Trio, did he have Toxicologists? Or just, like, coded weapons and... I think you'd want Toxicologist to get true abduction value. Or consistent abduction value. Because coded weapons is, like, hard to... It also works with Henry now. Yeah, but Henry, you're not playing it in Golden Necker, right? And, like, abduction for Henry, I've always thought is a bit YOLO, because... yeah, because you might not get, like, less than 10 provision legendaries. Or 10 provision or less legendaries. A lot of legendaries are more expensive, so... Order of location on Siri. Oh, false Siri. Yeah. Right, that's a very good card to do that with. But you have to draw Siri and location in the right order. Like... Like, how is he putting the Siri in their graveyard? If you haven't watched the video, Pekijin, it's a classic. Absolutely deserves a viewing. For people on YouTube, because they can't see bot posts in the chat up above, it's the Say No to Bribery video on Bandit Gang's YouTube channel. He plays it round 2 and just doesn't let it come back. That seems like debate. Like, if he was playing... Well, because if it triggers, like, it can come back to your side. An opponent can transform it, like, if opponent transforms it or locks it, then you can use abduction on it in round 3. But what do you do if the opponent lets it come to your side? Are you just always passing? You're putting a timer on your own, like... Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. Reigns is destined to see more play one day. Master which could help. Okay. Moving on. Northern Realms. Falling in our decks are about meta level, do not require huge buffs. Erlen Shoot Meter Generator, Renfree Priestess, Priestess Meter Generator, Shield Wall Kecker, and Knights. Is that a good surprise value? Yeah. But that's like the kind of deck that as soon as it becomes meta, it will become way worse, is not my idea of a good deck. I have had this opinion about bribery since, like, I was just a random newbie in Trinet's chat. And somebody would say the word bribery and I would immediately type in all caps F bribery, and it became like what Trinet recognized me as. So I really hate that card. I still hate it. I refuse to play it. Every time I see Shinmiri play bribery in deck, I'm just like, you clown. Like, he's not a clown, but like, he's a clown for playing bribery. A bit below meta, but still fine. Alumni? Meditating Mages spam? What are you playing against, Lerio? Yeah. No, I still hate bribery more than Temple, somehow. I don't know. I hate Temple, but I hate bribery more. Stockpile Siege, Inspires Ill Demovan, Quintfit Reavers, Temerian Infantry Spam, Golden Necker Orders Overload, Militarily, ... Yeah, deep in the sea. NR Witchers, Uprising Swarm. Well, why doesn't he recognize the Golden Necker Witchers deck that people got 2600 with last season? 13 provision? Yeah, that'll fix it. Uprising Swarm, Cursed Ada, Blue Stripe Swarm. Yeah, these are... Except for the NR Witchers one, because maybe he doesn't consider the Golden Necker deck. Maybe he doesn't know about it. But... I mean, Carp played it to 26 something. It was a very high score with it. So, Lerio, if you're watching this, I think this is an oversight. Unless it's a semantic issue, in which case, where is it over here? Top 3 decks from the first category is what I see play at a high competitive level in tournaments. Erland, Renfrey Priestess, and Priestess Mutagen. Oh, Shieldwall Necker is here. I'm sorry, my bad. It's not an oversight. He's just not calling it Witchers, even though it has Keldar and Ciri and Trial of the Grasses and... Okay, well that's it. I guess that's why he calls it Shieldwall Necker. Okay, my bad. Redacted, retracted. Apologies. Once you talk to in tournaments, the common denominator of these decks with respect to the rest is the presence of a strong and concise point slam core, mainly in the form of powerful finisher. Priestess and Erland Shoop are straight up carryover abuse decks. Yep. My opinion, nerf Ninja to 7 or even 8 is fine to incentivize more diversified deck building. Still, no matter provision cost, the card would be imbalanced. Yes. The possibility of getting +5 carryover or more per turn is just unhealthy. Yep. Which is why I didn't even put Mutagen on my list. Because, like, it would take, like, 3 nerfs to make it played less. And even then, it's still busted. Like, it's just dumb. Like, I think if you actually want Mutagenerator to die, you should, like, take half the 5 provision cards in Nilfgaard and make them 6, and half of them to make them 4. Or, sorry, a third of them. You should split the 5p cards and make a third of them 4p and a third of them 6p and the other third 7p or something. And just make... And then make Nilfgaard golds better, but make sure there isn't more than, like, 2 or 3 golds at any provision level that you'd want to play in the same deck. Literally, like, if my goal was to balance Mutagen, given the GWENTfinity, like, limitations, I would just stagger any synergistic NR bronzes and golds to different provisions. That is the only way. As long as Erland deck exists, my existence is pure suffering. You're like the opposite of Gabain, huh? This is one of the things Gabain and I constantly disagree about, is he thinks that Erland Shoop Temple is such a wholesome and skill-intensive deck. NG and Muta? What do you mean NG and Muta? Best Muta is 4p? You think so? What's the best Muta? I mean, I was memeing. I'm not going to actually, like, conduct a campaign to ruin all NR decks because Mutagen exists. Like, I hate Mutagen, but sometimes there are things you can fix and there's things you can't fix. And I feel like Mutagen is one I can't fix. But if other people make it unplayable by making it 15 provisions, more power to them. I wish them Godspeed. Like, I think you could remove Mutagenerator from the game and the game would be better. And I say that very rarely about cards. Sorry, Erland, sure, yes. The Erland Shoop deck. And it's impossible to make... But it also plays a lot of 10Ps. And you could split up the 10s at least. But yeah, I don't think there's a good way to fix that deck, to be honest. Nerfing Temple would go a long way. Muta's going to 7P. I mean, that won't do anything. But, you know, people are welcome to use their votes on that. In terms of possible ups, NR is a great playground. Almost every card outside top 3 decks is a candidate for improvement of stats. Let's concentrate on potential instant game changers, though. Yeah, same as me. Impact. And buff the classical Uprising Swarmy playstyle, which is the most lacking in NR right now, in my opinion. There is a bit of a bias in the Lerio Trusky school of Smorky point cheat decks, right? Griffin Witcher add a boost to 5 power. It is an interesting idea to support NR Witchers. It brings +3 value to each spawned Witcher student. Not to forget about low power Witchers played from hand. Becomes even harder to remove. It's already very hard. And I'm sorry, but not everybody has Tourney Joust. Like, sure, Tourney Joust counters it now. But like for monsters, it's literally just Toad and only Toad and Heat Wave. Like those are the only tools you have to get rid of it. And like as vampires, that shit is so annoying to play against because whatever you bleed gets transformed. Like transform is a very powerful mechanic, and we should be very careful about bringing back a card that gets points through transform. Like I'm sure nobody misses the ethereal. Nobody reasonable and sane misses the ethereal meta. Helldebra 2100. Nerfing Temple and Muta is going to be -2 provisions for every NR deck? Not every NR deck. Like, you could... there were lots of decks that didn't play Mutagen at all before Temple came along. Like, Stockpile Siege was one. You know? Alumni, obviously. That's because Alumni has their own temple in Chapter of Wizards. Which is still, in my opinion, a very busted card. It's like the Alumni version of Battle Stations is how I feel about Chapter of Wizards. But I agree that's probably a hot take at this point because Alumni see so little play. Stockpile is based. Yeah, I agree. It's my favorite NR deck. And even when people started playing Stockpile with Mutagen, I refuse because I think Mutagen is a garbage card. Is there an upper limit for provisions? No, there is not. Not that I've seen. So we could nerf Mutagenerator into 30 provisions for all, like, you know. Like, I mean, there is an upper limit for for provisions because if you make a deck with 24 4 provision cards, you only have 65 provisions left. So if you make a card less than 65 provisions or more than 65 provisions, then you couldn't play it in any deck. Yeah, Stockpile was your favorite non-deck? Yeah, Stockpile is so wholesome. I even like made I had a Renfree Stockpile list with the old Kira and War Elephant back when Renfree was OP, and I did okay with it. I got it to 2500. I had a Priscilla War Elephant deck. And then, of course, I had the standard Hensel Stockpile Siege deck with, like, Muzzle and Heatwave. And I think those were all very fine decks. And skillful. It's outside of some matchups where it was either, like, auto-lose or coin-dependent. But it still took, like... It's just that it got power-crept by everything else over time. And also, without Mutagenerator, it would just get wrecked by Syndicate because Junior counters Hensel so hard. And that's why Muta Siege became a thing. Everybody used to say that Mutagenerator is a terrible card because it gives you 0 tempo. You know, the classic, like, I judge a card based on X for Y without context mindset. Dismissed Mutagenerator as, like, another Prism, whatever the SD Prism is called. Like, that artifact. They just dismissed it as, like, being terrible. But... I think, like all like creative solutions, there was a period of like pain and suffering at the hands of Syndicate, where Northern Realms like deck builders came up with a solution, and that solution was Mutagenerator. And Mutagenerator suddenly made it so that Junior couldn't answer everything you played in one turn, like remove multiple threats in one turn, and then it became like meta, I think. Yeah, I think Shiniri like saw something about a Chinese player who'd gotten it to 20 550 or something. Vez at 6 provisions wouldn't be enough to make it playable. Like, Vez would need to be 6 provisions and 6 power. And even then, like, there are decks like NG Soldiers that have an infinite amount of locks that would just, like, there are cards in the game like Rafar's Vengeance and Demovand and Radovid that, like, if you deny Zeal, like, to stockpile, their options become very limited. Maybe that one matchup we're okay with just being auto lose for a stockpile. Also Masquerade Ball. Also Imprison and Golden Necker. Especially if they run verification. Also Clog, because that deck is not very consistent. Also still probably Syndicate, because they'd remove everything you play. I don't know. Stockpile was also very snowbally. Like, if Vez gave a card in your hand Zeal, it would be playable. In its current form. You know, like, it would just be like, with current power and provisions, I mean. Like, infuse a card in your hand with Zeal. Snap has a lot of this. Like, the next card you play will move to a different location. Or the next card you play will do XYZ. Kind of like Madame Louisa type thing. But the next card you play gets Zeal would require that Vez not get locked. And if you lock Vez, then it would stop working anyway. So it's the same thing, right? That's why I said infuse a card in your hand with Zeal. But again, we don't get to make those kind of changes. So let's move on. I want to keep this video shorter than an hour, hopefully. I don't know if that ship has sailed or not. I wouldn't try it yet before Masters, maybe for one season in 24. Yeah, okay. I think this would be a bad change. I think it needs to be a lot more thought through, because, and I would rather find other ways to buff in our Witchers. Buff the Witcher trio, buff you know, Griffin Witcher the Ranger or whatever it's called. There's just other ways I would rather buff this archetype than the 4P transform engine that only Nilfgaard can currently answer efficiently. Kidmini Revenant. +1 power buff with Bruce 4P bronze with extremely high ceiling. And oh, this is a Revenant. Yeah, this is improved cards like Drog or Forbidden Magic. Given that Drog is a possible pick from Temple of Melithle, I'm also not a fan of this change yet. Miamon had an interesting suggestion to increase the provisions of Drog by 1, and I was trying to figure out why, because he said he doesn't want to nerf anything, and the reason was he wants to have it guaranteed from 1,000 Fables. Because it... Kareem, I had the same thought, but it's reflected in Lerio's list as Shield Wall Necker. He doesn't consider them to be Witchers because they have Keldar, they have 2 Griffin Witcher bronzes, the 5P melee one, and they have like Child of the Grasses, but they don't have other Witchers, I guess. I don't know. Regardless, he's referring to like full-on Witchers. Dun Manor +1, but this is risky because of King Foltest. Yep. The roughly balanced alone, but possibly exploit in a very similar way to Blue Stripe Commandos, and also better in yeah. Blue Stripe could undergo -1 provision buff, which would be just cute, or +1 power, which would put Blue Stripes as an archetype back in the competitive menu. Yeah, I would be a lot more willing to agree to a -1 provision on Blue Stripes Commando, assuming we do the same for every other 5 provision thinner. Archers of Banner plus 1 power. Yeah, I suggested this as well, but then decided against it. Not a fan of such change yet. Well-piloted alumni are still stronger than you may think. Yes. PFI. Plus 1 power is a no-brainer. PFI were too easy to remove and not even worth it point-wise. I'm fine with this. Make this change. This would be a buff to Drog as well. 5p things or something. I agree. It's just the problem is Blue Stripes Commandos. You could say Wallhound Riders, and then there's another one. What's the other 5p thinner that would be problematic if boosted? Like crows, crow messengers, you can get like, that'll be, you can get 4 to 6 of these. Oh, this one? Maybe Lippy. Maybe this could be a problem. But it's mostly Blue Stripes Commandos. Like, I don't think buffing the Oberon combo by 3 points would be that huge. Like, it would be a big buff, but I don't know that it would make Frost, like, unbearable. Because it still requires that you hold those cards in your deck and not get any thinning value from them. I think this would be fine. Like, it would be a 3-point buff to a Lippy deck, the traditional Lippy deck. So maybe that's okay. This would be make Garrison better in Dwarves. And it's already such a stupid amount of point slam. Plus it puts like 3 armored Dwarves on the board instantly. I guess it's probably fine. Crows would also gain some power, but again, that's probably fine. Yeah. Aside from Blue Stripes Commando, I have no problem with all of these getting +1 power. And maybe this just gets -1 provision. So that non-Foltest abused decks get 2 provisions along the... And so would Foltest deck. Like, I'm fine with other NR decks getting more consistency because Blue Stripes Commando still has an order that you can counter. As opposed to these guys are all deploy, right? These guys are all deploy, whereas this is an order. So it makes sense to me that this be the same provision as Archespore. Like, I can see voting for this next cycle. And I think that's fair. Make all of these be +5. Sorry, every single one. So from Hunting Dogs all the way to Wallhound Riders. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know this isn't a 5p thinner. Maybe we skip this one. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These 7 cards could get 1 power. Or maybe just these 6. Hunting Pack, Crow Messenger, Casino Bouncer, Sewer Raiders, Mohawken Volunteer, and Drum and Shield Maiden. Maybe even Archespore. Each get 1 power. And then these 2 get -1 provision. That way their abused decks aren't that buffed by much, right? They just get 2 provisions. Or the decks that could abuse them. But other decks, I could even see this going down 1 provision. I think that might be okay at this point in the game, but maybe not. What do you guys think about that? These all gaining 1 power, along with Archespores, and then these losing a provision. Lauren, this as in you agree with me? Or is that what Straps and Skirmishers are fine, you think? Oh, you're saying -1 provision to all 3 of them. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being okay. If I was crazy buff to Serious Lippy? Oh, I did say that. It would be a 3-point buff to Serious Lippy. Or 3 points in round 1 and 3 points in round 3, so 6 points. But that deck isn't very strong. So, if you guys agree with me on this, talk to Shinmiri. Ask him if the Council Coalition will, because they're the best position to do something like this, will consider -1 power to these 3. Sorry, -1 provision to these 3, and +1 power to these and Archespores. So can I not copy? Maybe I can do arrows. And then somebody go share that with shit. Or it's a direct link to the image if you prefer. Rather, sorry, this. Yeah, that last link should do it. Okay, back to Lerio's. Okay, so PFI 1 power, sure. Can I figure 1 power? Not a chance for breaking someone very, but it would take 6 power to remove it. Fine. I mean, Flutter is like a similar card, and you usually need 7 power to remove it. But like in Shield Wall, this would be very annoying. Or Mutagenerator. That's the problem with a lot of these things. Is like Mutagenerator makes them oppressive. Ronvid -1 provision with no double thoughts. Yeah, I'm fine with that. The Witcher Trio deserve a 1 power boost. Sure. Well, okay, it's not 12 points. Is not. It also thins by 2. Come on, Lerio. Selective mutation to 5. I'm okay with that. Wait, is selective mutation what I think it is? Or it's currently 6 provisions actually. Right, the card I'm thinking of. Yeah, this to 5p would be fine with me. I'm okay with that. This game's still breathing? Yeah, Nox Speculum. How's it going, man? It's now it's community balance as of like 6 days from now. So instead of CDPR doing the balancing, we just all get to vote. There's a new like UI they added to the game where you can pick the 3 cards you want to increase in provision. Sorry, here. You can vote for provision increase, provision decrease, power increase, decrease, provision increase, decrease. And you vote in game, etc. Okay. Skellige. As well as Temple holds many. Muta holds all NR bronzes hostage. Yes. And Temple holds many gold hostage. Exactly. Like if you buff Drog, then it becomes better from Temple. Like, it's such terrible design to make like a card good because of its provision number. Like, we can't nerf Priestess to 5p because it would actually be a buff. How silly is that? And nerfing Priestess to 3 power would do nothing. Would do like absolutely nothing. You're never floating a Priestess. Like, Temple and Muta being deleted would be a buff to Northern Realms. If you love Northern Realms, you want those cards to be removed, like to be made unplayable. Because then we can buff everything else without it breaking the game. It's worse than what Caranthir was doing to monsters. Although I still hold that Caranthir should be usable on neutrals. I don't see a reason why it shouldn't. Like, are we really concerned about Caranthir living armor? Oh no, 14 for 9. The world is ending. And he has to have living armor in his deck. Caranthir Sienna would be cool. With Carapace. Parasol of Fury Self Wound. Falling SK decks are about meta level and do not require huge buffs. Parasol of Fury Self Wound, yes. Parasol of Great Swords, SK Ogreoids, yep. Onslaught Pirates, yep. Self Wound, yep. Rent-Free Beast, yep. Blaze of Glory, PF Warriors, yep. Bit below level, but still fine. Alchemy, Rain Scene Golden Necker, Compass decks, for example. Oops. Go back. Reckless Shoop or PF Shoop. This is Reckless Shoop. Hey, this is very similar to the deck I was playing. I'll love to compare mine with Lerio's later and see how good this one is. Lerio's very good at deck building, so. Crow Messenger spam. This is Crow Messenger spam. Oh, is this Imagawa's deck? Fukusia, So, Kelpie, Flaminica, Bride. Wait, where's the Flaminica? No Flaminica. Huh? What's the Bride for? Just to play another Freya's Blessing? Weird. So many decks I want to play. Cold Decker SK Witchers. Yeah, this is my deck. Or the deck that I played. I got the original idea from Trusky. Oh no, Incubus for 9. Wait, when is Incubus playing for 14? What are you rezzing with it? You're rezzing like a 1 power card for your opponent? It's their own fault for putting a 1 power bronze in their graveyard. God damn. That's a weakness of that card against monsters. Deal with it. Like, if you're putting a secret agent, secret service in your deck, like, that's a downside. Deal with it. Just like how my Pellar is a brick against a lot of SK decks, right? Whether I end up playing like a 4/4 because my Pellar's a brick, is Brigades, Brigades. Come on, Brigades. When was the last time you played against cultists? Not this season. Siege Ladder? That's not a 1. You're not thinking of Siege Ladder. You're thinking of Siege Masters or Siege Support, whatever. The 5p, 1 power, 1 armor guy. That card has an order. With Onager, that's at least 3 points that you got. So that's not a 14-point Incubus. You be careful around here with that kind of misinformation. Yeah. That's a 12 for 5, which is basically 1 Corsair. Just to be clear, the best case scenario of an Incubus is 1 Corsair. Corsair, as we know, is a unit of measurement of 5 provision bronzes. Until that card gets Anglerfish, 15-point Incubus. Fair, Suval. I can't really debate that one. But that's not a 15-point Incubus. that is a 13-point incubus because you played a 7 for 5 in the previous round because you had to play freaking Griffin, which ate your fruit. Like, a Griffin is a 7 for 5. So if you're not going to count the Griffin provisions as -1, then I'm not going to, you know. I mean, I agree with you, Lauren, but there's this big crusade among some pro players about Incubus because they see the dumb point slam, especially like after they lose round 1, as like Incubus playing above where it should. But like that's because Griffin was played in the previous round. And it's the problem with Erendite coins from blue deck that they can't be red coin abused because if you red coin abuse them, their sword keeps sticking, and they found other ways to get carryover. So like you're trying to red coin abuse them by playing low provision stuff, and meanwhile they're using werewolf to giga buff their other werewolf in deck, and they're using Griffins to set up Mamuna carryover, and they're using Griffin to set up Incubus or Megascope on Griffin to set up Incubus carryover. And like, you know, it's a carryover abuse problem. But I don't think Incubus is the major offender of that. I think Incubus pulling out a 10 power Ogoroid is a problem with that Ogoroid being 4 provisions. Make that Ogoroid 5 provisions. If you're not gonna make it have 9 power, then make it 5 provisions. That card is too good. 10 for 4 is too good. I don't even care if it has a timer. In an Ogoroid deck, it doesn't have a timer, basically, and you can give it Veil, so it's like not exactly easy to stop. That's a problem. And then I also think Alpha Werewolf, or rather Werewolf itself, is a problem. If it's going to play for 23 points, it should be 5 provisions. But I hate that redesign anyway. Yeah, Werewolf is silly. Like, and if you don't draw one with Alpha, it's kind of dumb. So it's got this like high rolly nature to it that I despise. Not to mention it's like the least interesting thing in the world. Hand buff. You put Werewolf and Ophidian provision nerfs? But nothing's gonna happen if you're the only one, Kareem. You should have said something to me. I could have been convinced. But like you're voting for principle? Like you're using your votes as an act of protest in a way that no one will see. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people are. Maybe you've told a lot of people and you've convinced them. But I wish you told me. I would have talked about it in my video. Many Skellige decks were playable in Gwent 11.9, but the top position PF was definitely superior on a competitive level. What is particular, this Skellige archetype limits many of the others, especially ones relying on rain. Rain free bees, rain necker, damage priest, or swarm. Yeah, because Svalbard is so good, so many swarm decks have been kept back. So I'd like to see what happens after the Care Troll nerf. Ophidian deserves not a nerf, but suffering. I mean, I honestly don't know how to fix Ophiri. It's better than wasting my votes on Marines and Battle Station. I'm not saying you're wrong to vote that way. I'm just saying, in addition to voting that way, you should have told me or someone else so we could get more people to vote that way so your changes actually happen. Because they're not bad changes. Soap seems a bit too strong and impactful. It made Self-Wound go for a kind of good stuff build. Rather than developing value from complex synergies. Yeah. Yeah, Sov is a big problem. Decks like Rain or Pirates explicitly lack this kind of card.
It's a raid!
Yo, Shinmiri, thank you for the raid. Welcome, everyone.
With 217 views.
I don't know if anybody shared this with you, but I was like, this is the kind of thing that I think only your balance coalition can do, which is to like balance like 7 cards at once. I was saying that maybe the coalition, maybe like next cycle or something, can tackle make commandos, Wellhound Riders, and skirmishers 4 provisions, and then improve all these other thinners by 1 power. And the reason I suggested that was because these cards, if you gave them 1 power, would be really too strong. Like this would make this more. It would make tempo abuse SK more tempo abusive. This would make Oberon combo way better. This would make Foltest a lot like better by 30 points or something. And then these guys could use some love. This would boost Lippy by 3 points round 1, 3 points round 3, but I think that's fine. Lippy's not that strong. Same with Alchemy, although you may disagree. But like Archespore is still bad even at 4p because you have to consume it. And these cards see almost no, these 3 cards see no play. This card sees some play, but it's only because no, actually most dwarf decks don't even run this. It wouldn't be if this got some love, it'd be fine. Why do they need to go at the same time? I don't know. I guess they don't have to, but it seems kind of unfair to buff the... also Hunting Dogs. I meant to circle this and I forgot. So I apologize about that. I wasn't trying to overlook Hunting Dogs. I just made a screenshot quickly. Lippy is strong in the hands of Cintrian. There's a benefit to pushing. Yeah, I agree. We'll get to 10 and Compass to 9. No, Shin, stop it. Stop it. Compass to 9. SMH by H. No, but for example, if you were to nerf Enraged Cyclops to 9 power and buff Neckers to 2 power, those two could go at the same time. I think that makes sense. It's not the best example, but I just thought if you're gonna make all of the because if you're making a change to, let's say, if you say Phantom is too weak, right? Where's Phantom? Or sorry, if you say Nithrol is too weak, right? Well, so is Black Rayla. I don't see why those two shouldn't go together in the same push. You know? These used to be the same tier as Philippe. Or there's a lot of 7p ones. These, Urcheon, Eggman, Herkia, Hyperion Phantom. These could all get buffed at the same time. I don't know. The reason is they belong to different decks and factions. Yeah, I guess maybe the elegance of all the 5p thinners being changed at the same time appeals to me. But balance comes to keep them at the same. I mean, I don't know. Without a considered effort, I don't see any of these I see cards that are everyone agrees are problematic getting nerfed, but I don't see these one-off cards unless somebody else, unless a new power rises in the east. You know, I don't see anybody else being able to swing a change. And I'm not gonna vote for one of them without the other ones getting changed because I don't want to wait 6 months for the change. And I think it'd be weird to buff Hunting Dogs and not Mahakam Dwarves at all. I don't know. You have to coordinate buffs. Yeah, that's what I meant. That's why I was saying the council. But it's fine. We are reviewing Lerio's post. I don't know if you've seen, but he had a post, a very good post on the Balanced Council. And he's taking an archetypal approach, which I know is something you probably did as well. But so far, I've been reading it. We looked through NG, MO, and NR. We're at Skellige now, and so far I've agreed with almost all of his suggestions. I'd say 80 to 90% of what he said I agreed with. So we're talking about so this is the beginning of the Skellige thing. He listed the archetypes that are strong, that probably don't need a buff. So PF Self-Wound, PF Greatswords, also known as SK Ogres, Onslaught Pirates, Self-Wound, Ren-Free Beast, and Blaze of Glory / or PF, just Devotion Warriors basically. And then things that are below the meta, but probably still okay, as in viable, playable. Alchemy, Rain Melusine, Compass decks, Reckless Shoop or PF Shoop, Crow Messenger Spam, and Golden Necker SK Witchers. Although, I think this one's a lot weaker now that Compass is no longer 9p. Later, Shin. There's some consistent amongst English and Russian community as far as I see. Nerf Souls Val Bloodless, Nerf Battle Station. There's some other Sesame to 6. Yeah, me, for example, I don't agree with Sesame to 6. I think we have to wait and see how the nerfs to Syndicate affect the meta, and we won't know till the end of the season, I feel. Because Syndicate always has this weird thing where it's like crap at the beginning of the season, then goes up in the middle of the season, and then late in the season, people start countering it. Like, Syndicate just seems to follow that curve for some reason. In terms of at least how often it's played, even. Not necessarily power, but like, Syndicate's always underplayed at the beginning of the season for some reason. Many SK decks were playable in Gwent 11.9. But the top position was definitely superior and compatible. So here Lerio is talking about Sov seems a bit too strong and impactful points down play. It made Self Wound go for a kind of good stuff build rather than developing value from complex synergies. Okay, Asteroid, I can't ignore your comment for some reason. I would love to because it's off topic, but Shady Vendor isn't the problem. If anything, Shady Vendor was over nerfed when they removed its tag. Shady Vendor makes Sesame more consistent. Like, if you build a deck around Sesame, then only relying on drawing your Sesames is like bad design. Or like forces that you play Furco in that deck, or Tome. Tome Breaking Devotion, and Furco is like an 8-for-2, and nobody wants to play it. It just makes it like, it's the same as making Sesames be more expensive, right? It would be a -4 provision to the deck if you're forced to play Furco. So, like, Shady Vendor is, like, only played with King of Beggars nowadays because the gold cost is so high. And so there's a synergy between those two, but it's fine for some cards to have synergy like that. Yeah, Syndicate doesn't have a lot of choice at 5p already. And removing one of the played ones is not good. And that's something, again, thinking about the other options at a provision level is very important when you guys are considering nerfs or buffs to things. Like, don't just think about it as this is a 12 for 5 or whatever. Think about it as, okay, if this becomes a 6, how would it affect decks? And what are my options at that provision level? Because there are currently some provision levels, again, because I'm mainly a monsters deck builder, 5p bronze for monsters, aside from the archetype specific cards, and 6, 7, and 8p for monsters are just awful. And when I say awful, I mean there's like 2 good choices and then everything else is shit. Link to this discussion, here you go. It's LerioHub.com. His blog, you should definitely follow it. So, and you can also follow Lerio on Twitter. He always posts about his stuff. So decks like Rain or Pirates explicitly lack this kind of card. That's archetypal weakness. Yeah. See, you can bleed Rain or you can bleed Pirates potentially. Although Pirates having carryover in the form of boat and armor kind of makes them a lot more resilient to bleed. And then Alchemy has Crows and good short round with Getty and Utkel to make them impervious to bleed. But just like, again, the fact that Sov has like a brainless instant 30 point with Patch Out of Fury leader on demand makes bleeding them almost always like backfire, or at least cost you card advantage. It also makes their short round really good. So it means they can bleed you if they want to. And even if they lose last say, like, unless you have COC and another Tall Punish saved up for round 3, which is very hard against a deck that plays Olgierd and Sigvolt, because those also have to be Tall Punished. You can't just damage them by 7 or 10, right? It just, that combination makes it very oppressive. A pure point slam card is Ceres on crate into Drummond's Shield Maidens. +1 power for Ceres seems reasonable, while +1 power to Shield Maidens seems like a way to set the world on fire. Lippy decks, and in my opinion, shouldn't be applied. Interesting. Well, how many Shield Maidens? I guess because Lippy decks can use Megascopes to duplicate the Shield Maidens? Is that the issue? Devoted Warriors are suffering from degenerate muted Temple decks. Kill it, skill Spellbook. Make Ganova is gonna rise up. Devotion could be. I mean, I guess my takeaway from what you're saying is don't worry about Warriors. Right now there's stuff in the meta that's hard countering them. But I've been playing Warriors and it's been fine. I got up to 2,500 pretty easily last season. And there was lots of Muta and SY on the ladder. Muta, Temple, Svalbard. Like, some of those were hard matchups. Obviously, Svalbard was a very hard matchup, but it was still winnable if you didn't get unlucky. Obviously, it was an unfavored matchup, but yeah. Can anyone explain to me why +1 power for shield maidens would be such a like world-ending thing? Lerio seems to have some lippy PTSD. Another cool but underplayed card is Artist. +1 power boost on this card would make it harder to remove and better point slam value. On incentivizing unusual deck building. Maybe. Outkill is a card printed in the recent Heritage. With great point potential, but also severe restrictions. Outkill could act as a powerful play in short round, so rivals Sove in a sense, but it is way more hazardous and unstable. -1 provision would make investment in Outkill more feasible. I think Outkill's already very strong. Our shields are our ramparts? Thank you, Everilo. When it comes to Golden Necker 10 to 9 candidates, Magic Compass is the main possible. No, stop it. Stop it. I see both pros and cons. What is sure, such change would unlock huge deck building potential, but also may overshadow everything. Like, why should Skellige be the only Golden Necker deck that faction that can... Why should Skellige be the only faction that can have Golden Necker decks that play stuff above 9 provisions? This is a silly thing to me. Like, I will never stand for this. If I hear any of you are trying to make Magic Compass 9P, and I say this as someone who has a SK Witcher's deck that I loved. I played it like maybe 1,000 games, got it to 25, 50. One season I even got it to like, very close to 2,600. I beat Miamon with it twice. Like, I love that deck, and I love Compass in it, and I haven't been able to play it since the Compass nerf. But Compass was fundamentally unfair in a Golden Necker deck. Please. 2 teleports equals 5 shield maidens with +1 power buff. Why do you need... How does teleports give you extra shield maidens? Doesn't shield maiden pull stuff from the deck? How would teleport give you extra shield maidens? Megascopes. Okay, megascopes. Okay, but like 5 points now, 5 points round 3. Yes, it's significant, but it's not like game breaking. I mean, Werewolf is playing for 23 points. Who wants Golden Necker Compass back? A lot of people, apparently. For a couple of last seasons, I play mainly Warriors or Pirates, so Spellblood 2 strong for me. Yet from time to time, I use Spellblood just to try and see how good it feels. Absurdly strong. Last 20 plus match with this abomination, I've lost one, just one. For me, it's the deck that there's some harsh nerfs. Really harsh, at least with this deck off the scene. Many SK decks and Swarm decks. Like, so many Swarm decks are unplayable because Svalblood is meta. Like, every time I try to play a Swarm deck, I run into Svalblood and then I just switch decks. Like, I'll play like 2 or 3 games and I'll feel good, and I run to Svalblood and it'll just be like, and then I stop. I hate you, Mastigos. Bang yourself, please. Ever hear about Magic? I guess I have not had a game against Lippy decks where I was like, oh man, they're out-tempoing me in round 1. What am I going to do? I'm going to lose uneven. Like, unless they use discard package. I'm a lot more hesitant to buff discard tempo cards than I am in... So I'd rather like reduce the provision cost of skirmishers than to make them +1 power. And Compass is just... No, this is a deal breaker for me. I'm sorry. Serious Figures is a decent card already, but buffing her would further promote classical Self Wound over... This is the problem. Like, people get this idea that like new Self Wound is like haram or whatever. Old Self Wound was wholesome. No, it wasn't. Old Self Wound was also not wholesome. It was a deck that you had to win against them round 1 so you could squirrel their Melusine or their Sigvald and you would lose. Like, you had to have Heat Wave. Like, it wasn't wholesome. It was just less mindless than I play Blob and I get 30 points. That didn't make it a good and healthy archetype. Just because you had to do math to play a deck to its optimal maximum does not make that deck wholesome. Because there were so many matchups where, because they dropped the Melusine and you don't have Heat Wave, you are now forced to commit literally everything or lose the game. And even if you commit everything, a lot of times you still couldn't win round one because, you know, Canute and then Ceres comes out. If you don't answer Canute and you don't answer Ceres, like, that's like a 20 plus point a turn engine just destroying all your chances of winning the round. It didn't matter they committed so much because all they need is one Sigrifa or one Melusine to win the game. Because a short round 30-point Melusine wins the game. Like, they could easily 2-0 you, like, or force you to play everything and then win round 3 anyway with just Sigvald and 2 Mardromes. Add Care Troll to that mix, and no, Self Wound was never, like, just because something takes math and more decisions does not make it a healthy archetype. I need Gabane to hear me on this. Just because something is difficult to play at the max level does not make it a wholesome deck. For the same reason that Cultist was not a wholesome deck. What makes a deck unwholesome is that it's insufferable to play against. Not how hard it is to pilot. How hard it is to pilot can make it more enjoyable for you as a top player because you like the mental effort and feeling like you could have done better. It's the reason why, like, Enslaved 6 is enjoyable to a lot of people. Because there's a big difference between a really good Enslaved player and a really bad Enslaved player. And same thing with Self Wound. That's why Spiro loved the deck. But just because something takes skill to play at an optimal level does not mean that it is not frustrating to play against. Yes, Frost into Self Wound, or like... Hewlin is the second candidate, and Arnegat to support Golden Echo Witchers is the third. Hewlin to 9p? I don't mind that change. But she does play for a lot of points. Especially if you can swarm the board. Now, the best way to swarm the board with SK is Witchers or Beasts. Because of Crows. But if you have, you know, Ceres on crate, or if you have a Berserker land and start like going to work, Hewlin could play for a lot of points. Just on deploy, forget the graveyard, the graveyard Freya synergy. I think Hewlin would need a couple of power nerfs if she's going to be 9p. Because Golden Echo can really put a lot of bodies on the board real fast. And Arnegat is also another binary card. Like, it was cool that you could get it sometimes from Compass. Because it allowed for, like, skillful play. Right? Against Priestess, for example. It was hilarious. Gave me so much joy to Arnegat Priestess decks from my Compass. And Compass did enable a lot of situational cards to become playable or whatever in the right. But I know she buffs only humans. Drummond Berserker is human. These ones. Like, if you're against a deck that doesn't... If your opponent doesn't have a 4 removal, this can make, like, a bunch of bodies. And there's a lot of humans in SK. See how many humans there are in SK? There are lots. I play Hewlin in my Alchemy deck. I'm not unfamiliar with the card. I'm just not sure that 9p is good for it. Just unleashes better threat overload in Golden Necker decks. Yeah, like Arnegat and Golden Necker seems like I'm thinking of my Solid Fury Witchers Golden Necker deck, and if I had Arnegat in deck, I could reliably get like 12 armor on it, and that would be oppressive because I can do all that in one turn. I can play Arnegat at 12 with no counterplay because leader is 4 Bloodthirst, right? And Offering to the Sea is a bunch of Bloodthirst. Or because it also works on your side of the board, right? So, like, your Golden Necker would play Arnagad. Sorry, I guess Offering would happen after the Arnagad. But the 4 from Leader, you could always guarantee that Arnagad gets those in the same turn that you play Arnagad if you wanted to. So, I don't know. Like, making something that requires, like, 16 removal to get rid of, otherwise everything you play dies, be available via Golden Necker seems a bit... Because, like, you can have... I mean, the unit comes out first, so that's something. But I still feel like... I don't know. I mean, Lerio already says it. Unleashes better threat overload. Yeah, I don't think threat overload is fun to play against. I know that's the only way a lot of, like, engine-y type decks get to see play, but... I'm not sure that Golden Necker is the solution. Oh, Invincible Arca with Sucrus? Yeah. Skirmish and -1 provision is a simple way to support discard, which is underplayed now. I don't think it's a priority, though, when playing versus 8-point stratagem. Mask of Urberus didn't used to be fun. Yeah. Yeah, 8-point stratagem is disgusting. Please, just like in the case of Alumni, don't boost Preachers to 5 power to improve Alchemy. He's not wrong, man. Preachers need to stay at 4. Like, do not boost them, please. Queensguard would be very interesting with 5 power with Berserk 3. Oh. Would require 2 points of self-damage, which mitigates... Yeah, I don't know. Pressure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this. Crow Mother +1 power is popular pick. I'm neutral. Yeah. Crow Mother has own issues as expensive carryover card, which has to be found early. Yes. +5 carryover for round 2, round 3 could be really impactful, which would increase variance. Perhaps I like provision boost direction more. Yeah. I would rather Crow Mother go to 9 provisions than get 1 power. I don't know how you guys feel about this. Perhaps I like provision. Variance, tempo, abuse are less prevalent then. At 9 provision, Crow could join Crow Messengers, spam Golden Necker decks. Of course, would be less impactful than 5 power one. Yeah. But it would still be good. Following ST decks are about meta level. So, Scoia'tael. ST decks are about meta level and do not require huge buffs. These ST decks. Sorry, let me want to pull this out so I can open these. So, Deadeye Ambush with Heist. Nature's Gift with Igni and or not, you know, Force Protector, etc. Guerrilla Tactics. This is Harmony, Shiru. This is the Milva deck that like Leo M and others played in the recent tournament I've seen and brought to top 16. Precision Strike with Telian. This is a deck Leo M has played a lot. Again. Card of Harmony is also fine, but Sheer is better, yeah. Bit below meta, but still fine. Invigorate Hand buff, Dragons, Renfi Scholars, or Maddock Milva, sure. Movement Necker. He says, maybe that's why we saw someone on ladder, because Lerio said they're still fine. Forged Dwarves, all in traps. Scoia'tael seems like a faction where everything is clear and the gap between good and bad cards is vivid. Yet sometimes proper conjunction of good cards could surprise. So it was with Guerrilla Shiru Milva deck used by Catburger to win recent top 16 qualifier. 3 players finished September season with 2640 FMR and ST, and each of the decks was different. Renfree Dragons, Symbiosis, and Deadeye Ambush Elves. So that's what happened. Somebody got 2640 with Renfree Dragons. Some other players had very good scores with Dwarves, while not very competitive. I personally enjoyed Dwarves as Construct Hobby, showed by Team Ever Sheware. Yeah, I played this deck. Puzzle gave me something like this. Yeah, 9P Crow Mother feels like healthier zone. I agree. There's nothing wrong with Crow Mother being in Golden Necker Alchemy either. Like, it's not oppressive, it's just good tempo, and Golden Necker should have good tempo. Golden Necker wants to thin anyway, so it loves to play Darren. you pull Chrome Mother out. And I think that's a healthy... Like, it plays for 5 tempo and pulls Chrome Mother, puts it in the graveyard. And then if you play Alchemy card, Chrome Mother comes out. I think that's a very... And allows counterplay with Squirrel. Make hand buff great again? I hate hand buff. It's like a win round 1 archetype. And that's a dumb archetype. It's either going to be, like, good because it can win round 1, or it's going to be shit because it can't win round 1. And there's no in between. There's never a balanced version of it. Because, like, if you don't have last say, all your hand buffs have gone to waste. You can get bled, you can get just tall punished, and either way, like, you're not having a good time. So it's a draw your cards round 1 or lose the game archetype for both players. And it's like, I like the hand buff that buffs like Sorks or Philavandrel and then uses them for some sort of payoff. But the garbage Farseer hand buff, and garbage I mean garbage design wise. Oh, I'm just gonna buff Torque, and Torque is gonna buff something else by 5, and blah blah blah. No. Buffing cards to a certain power level because at that power level they do something interesting, neat. Buffing stuff to infinity by random because you boosted a Torque, garbage. I would rather delete Torque and then look at, like, making Sorks and Sheldon and any other card in Scoia'tael that benefits from being boosted. I would look at making those more powerful, either through provision or power buffs. But Torque's got to go. Farseer's got to go. Like, it's just silly. This, like, randomly boost cards in your deck by a gajillion, and then I play a 4P bronze, but it does 20 damage. Like, stop it. Me uninstalling the game after seeing Reddit suggestions? Is it high? Why is this muted? Is this a GIF? Oh, it is muted. Oh. Damn it. Why do I click on Sam links? Hand buff movement and Scoia'tael seem like the main direction for buffs. Philavandrel +1 power, Gizos +1 power. Gizos +1 power won't do anything. And it won't work in Golden Necker, which is like the best way to play movement because it allows you to put multiple engines on the board. Otherwise, it's like Saskia, and Saskia, half the movement cards don't work well with Saskia. Torque and Farseers are ST's Muta? Not really. But they are pretty binary. Or, I don't know. They're just so boring. I buff Torque and I buff Sheldon, so I have an extra 10 points now. Whee! And there was nothing you or opponent could have done about it. One way or another. So isn't this Blaze +1 power? Why? No. That's a neutral card. And why? You should only play Blaze in a deck that can remove lots of things. Savannah would improve a lot of its floor and could be combined with Bountiful Harvest. 6/5 provision cost. I don't like Harvest getting changed to 5. Like, Harvest already boosts a card in your hand by 2. Backup Plan damages a card by 2. What other 6 provision card is there that 6 provision special that could use a provision buff? This could go to 5. I'd rather this go to 5 than Harvest. Or even Rune Ward could go to 5. Rather than Harvest. Harvest is like already 2 points of carryover and gives you a card. And it's nature. So I don't think Harvest needs a buff. Makes much sense when backup plan exists. Okay, but backup plan is too good. Giga Scorp? No, because Gigascorp can be used to kill immune things too. I mean, I prefer the old decoction being in the game at 5 provisions. I don't like this combination thing they did. So maybe 5p this is fine. Would be a buff to alchemy control. Or up to 5 is a nerf. It's a nerf to Alzer. But I don't care about Alzer. How is it a nerf otherwise? Bloody Flail. Some cards are just hopeless. Okay? They're not deserving of a buff or nerf because they're just terrible design. It will never be good. No, Alzer is a clown. Were you not around during Alzer meta? When Alzer movement ST was meta? Alzer Milva or Alzer... cards like Alzer should never be competitive. Nothing will save Flail. It is born dead. Yeah. Flail was born deader than... I forgot the card. The NR card. What is it? This. Yeah. Flail is deader than Botchling. It was never competitive? That's a lie. Drill safe. Don't repeat it. Alzer was competitive. It was the top deck, actually, in the meta. It was like in the top category on the TLG meta report, multiple seasons. So you're objectively 100% wrong. And this comment that Alzer cards like Alzer should never be competitive is like a direct quote from streamers at the time who were saying that like it's so frustrating because sometimes it gives you like a ridiculous card and it's impossible, and sometimes it gives you a shit card and it's terrible. Like games being decided by Alzer RNG was not fun. Yeah, am I aging myself by saying that, Kareem? That was like before Elder Blood was like a worthy rival even. Sharpshooter 10p? No, Sharpshooter is 11. Kareem. But honestly, the way that this is played right now with Scholars, people want this at 11. Professional Guanter, Kareem, yeah. Kareem's new though. He's just like talented. He doesn't have as much game knowledge as a Pepega like me. There's lots of archetypes he hasn't actually properly played yet. He just won top 16 though because he's good at the game. Was it 16 or 64 that you won? I think it was 64 that you won. Cleaver's Muscle. +1 power buff is a popular pick. Would be irrelevant for the playability of card itself, but impactful for Nilfgaard Justice. And also Cleaver and Syndicate. He doesn't say he's for it or not. He's just saying it's a... whatever. Ithleen, -1 pro would support a hand buff. Also in Golden Necker variants. Same one for Aglaeus would be a funky. No, Aglaeus doesn't need a buff. Could we withstand gold? All of these changes about making Golden Necker more viable by making 10p cards 9p, I disagree with. I think if you want to make Golden Necker better, buff 6, 7, and 8p cards to make Golden Necker more playable. Right now, Golden Necker, you're like forced to jam 1,000,009 provision cards because a lot of the 6, 7, and 8p cards are terrible. Some say I'm lucky. Yeah. I don't know about that. You've been very consistent. Volunteers could get 4 provision cost in the current state of the game, so only the extra dwarves would trigger them. Becomes a payoff for swarmy dwarves playing above power versus provision curve, while it's a useful thinning tool for decks like rent-free hand buff or control ST that are running a small dwarf package. Yeah, I can see this. Hawker Smugglers could get +1 power boost. I don't like carryover abuse cards getting improved. I mean, right now they're terrible, but I would rather make them 5 provisions than give them 1 power. Like, 4 to 5 is a huge leap in removability. And it's a bronze, and they can play 2 of them, and they can play Dunka. Making me have to remove all 3, or else you build a lot of carryover, is not healthy design. 10p are the best cards in the game. They literally tend to prevent playing. Yeah, exactly. So like I said, I'm not against it ever happening. Like Crow Mother to 9, I'm totally fine with. And like Kiki Queen to 9 didn't make Golden Echo Kiki like oppressive or anything. It's just that as a rule, like I think a healthier way to make Golden Necker decks good is to provide more deck building options by buffing the 6, 7, and 8 golds. Like just looking at Scoia'tael, this was a good buff. I wish this wasn't roll locked, but it is what it is. Like this is playable now in Golden Necker. Elves are all just unplayable because the best elves are still above 9. This was above the Golden Necker potentially, but again, Swarmy decks are all bad right now because of Svalblood. And a lot of Golden Necker decks would be Swarmy. And Svalblood just completely negates them. This could use a buff. Poly. This is a card that a Golden Necker deck might want to play. It's just very bad right now. Like this could go to 8 power and then it'd be good. This could use a buff. There's also some 9Ps that could use a buff, like Malayan. This could use, this could go down to 7P and it would still be fine. This also could go down in provision cost. Like no one plays this. This could go down in provision cost. This could be 8. Although because it spawns Deadeyes, it would be oppressive in an Angus deck. So I don't know. This could go down to 8 provisions. Again, it would be buffed to the Dumb Dragon Scholar deck, but this could go down. No, because this can be used with Deception. So, it's the elves and heist nonsense that's keeping a lot of stuff. Both Hattori can't coexist with the Deception, though. Because that Hattori would play for 2 plus whatever a 7 provision trap is. I don't think that's true. Maybe you could change What if you said, like, spawn and play a gold, or play a trap card from your deck, and something like, if there are less than 6 cards on this row, instantly flip it? I don't know. No, that wouldn't be good either. Yorveth don't... Yeah, no. Immediately I said because of Deception. Because that's a 21-point card, potentially. Yeah, Yorveth is very, very good. Yorveth is severely underrated. Especially in an Elves deck. Can you say about a Vampire Archetype? It's too late now because... Pharaoh, that's not true. Vampires are, like, B tier. And with a couple of buffs, they could be solid. If you want to see my thoughts on that Balance Council, I posted them here. Please go upvote on Reddit. Add your thoughts and comments as replies. I made a 1 hour and 15-minute video where I go through my system of evaluating changes as well as how I'm voting and why. So go check it out if you're interested. Right now we're looking at Lerio's post from Lerio Hub. Second Serpent Trap was always fine with Hattori. And with Yorveth. Because you have to have played it that round. Vampires need... Vampires are now only playable with Renfree, and that makes it a problem in the current meta because there are some cards you have to remove that Vampires just can't remove. Like, what are Vampires supposed to do if opponent plays Dana turn 1? Right? Unless they have Riptide in hand, they lose. Against Elves, you need Riptide and Cyclops, or you lose. Against Svalblood, you need, like... I don't even know how you're supposed to deal with Sigvold. You need, like, Doragary and Aguara to deal with Self Wound, and you still need Riptide, but Riptide gets hard countered by like so much of the Skellige deck, and you still probably lose to Soul. And you're not getting last say because you have to bleed, and then your Regis gets killed by Heatwave. Like it's kind of an impossible matchup. What it used to be against old Self Wound, you could like win round 1 and bleed and come out with a victory. Vampires are also hopeless against Symbiosis. They're good into Nilfgaard and Syndicate. Vampires can beat Pirates because Pirates don't have points. They can remove everything you play, but at the end of the day, unless like they got godlike draws in round 1, you can one of your cards will get through, and that's often enough to win the game. How are Vamps in Ogre-like build? They're very bad. Vamps with Aaron make no sense because your bleed ticks on the opponent's turn. So you're not usually ahead on tempo. You're ahead on tempo after the opponent hits end turn, which doesn't affect your Erendad at all. A lot of times I'll be like 12 points behind, but I'm actually winning on even if I pass. Because of the way Garcane, Oriana, and Bleeds on the enemy unit works. I win a lot of games just because Vampire math is hard. Like Death Wish work and Ogres work because their points are instant. And let's when you Teshem, I love Teshem with Vampires, but the problem is, like, a lot of times you have to answer something immediately, which means you're leadering it, unless you have a Necrat living on the board. But in my experience, against like an Elves list where they have the 4P Tricksters that are OP as fuck, you're never gonna have Necrats stick against Elves, or against like Svalblood, and so Teshem can only really be used on defenders or if you use a leader. And when you use a leader to Teshem something, that's 3 bleed gone. That 3 bleed is worth 6 or 9 points usually in Vampires. And so, like, it's a playable card in non-Renfree list, but a non-Renfree list has many other problems, unfortunately. Can Vamps run Escol? No. Well, Renfree Vamps cannot because they run Morvad. And, like, if you can't kill... Oh, because Renfree also has to run human, right? Has to play humans because Renfree. If you're playing non-Renfree Vamps, and you're not running Incubus, even though Incubus is very good in Vamps. Like, if you're playing non-Renfree Vamps, you're playing Operator and Incubus. So, Escol can no longer kill a Witcher, a beast, because you need to run Toad or Squirrel, and it can't kill a Relict, right? Because Incubus, and it can't kill a Vampire. Like, that's a lot of stuff you can't kill. Not to mention, Vampires just need a lock. Since you have no way to kill stuff, like, instantly, you need the lock. Show some of Vamp cards. Go look at my votes, Pharaoh. Vamps just need a little bit of love, and I think they'll be good. I think Unseen Elder to 7 power, will be helpful. Plumorts to 5 power is a consideration. Gale to 5 provision is a consideration. Protoflatter 8 provisions, maybe. Protoflatter is just kind of a weird card to me because everything in Vamps wants you to spread your bleeds, and then Protoflatter compensates you for stacking your bleeds. But what I really wanted was for Verena to remove all bleeding from a target and damage it by the amount removed. Not Verena, but like literally any vampire card that could get added that would remove bleeds and convert them to damage. Like, let me convert bleeds to damage, please, so I can kill something. You did watch the vid? Okay, Farah, thanks. Sorry, it's just a lot of this stuff we've talked about a lot. Okay, but we're talking about ST. Neutral Witcher to 6-4 power would be good. Yeah, that's fine. Hawker Smugglers. Yeah, I talked about how I didn't agree with this. Alright. Syndicate. Sweat decks are about meta level and do not require huge buffs. Line Pockets off the books Vice. Yep. Blood Money Necker. Yep. Off the books Gregory. Yep. Blood Money Bounty. Yep. These are the 4 competitive Syndicate decks at the moment. I can't think of another one. Underexplored. Crimes Cleaver. Oh, trust me, we've explored it, Lerio. They're just not good. Crime Stack Collusion, same thing. Because Shady Vendor is such a good card in a like it's a unit that plays a crime. You would love to play it in a collusion deck because it's line pockets, but you can't because it doesn't have a tag, and so Siggy can't tutor it. It's made the deck so much worse. Congregate Swarm. No, you need to draw your Knights Ulrich round 1 or you lose. It's also heavily susceptible to decks that can yoink and graveyard punish. Also, like Enslave 6 laughs at you. Everything you can do, I can do better. Self-poison, I guess, maybe. I'm not sure. Tattering SY. I've explored it. It's shit. It doesn't work. Because why? Nilfgaard. Like, all of your best cards become incredibly vulnerable when they get reduced to 1 base power. Nilfgaard and Pirates make this unplayable. Also Svalblood, obviously. But maybe... Yago Jackpot, somebody played. I think this is underexplored. Maybe it's playable. I don't know. Passiflora, not playable. In Search of Treasure's Hoard. This archetype relies heavily on Flinder's Crew. And even if Svalblood doesn't meta... because Strava literally wipes your Flinder's Crew off the board, and people and your Azar stuck, and your snare didn't get heat waved. You still, even if you win round 1, you have to bleed round 2 to get your Flinder's Crew to proc in round 2. The fact that Flinder's Crew requires playing 3 rounds, and a Forgotten Treasures deck wants to play a long round, is like a fundamental, like, black hole of a design goof in the deck, in the archetype. Jackpot can be buffed. Why 1 provision? Sure, but you all just say jackpot because you haven't seen it in 2 years. But 2 years ago, Jackpot was oppressive, and CDPR nerfed it by 1 provision 3 months in a row. And it was towards the end of that 3rd month that people finally switched off the books. Like, that's how stupid it was with King of Beggars. Because, you know, when you overprofit with King of Beggars, it boosts in deck. Yeah. It was so terrible. Yep, Val, I remember. It was so... like, every... I would say like 50% of my games when I was trying to climb with Sabbath Vamps, because they had also gotten reworked at that time, were against Jackpot. To the point where I had like 2 Drowners and a Doragary, like just because of Freak Show. Come on. There was other stuff too. There were a lot of like, you gotta... both Salamages were disgusting because they were like, they cost 3 coins instead of 5. And they did 6 damage. And I think they were maybe 1 provision cheaper. I'm not sure. Yeah. So people who like wax poetic about Jackpot just didn't live through that period. They don't have our Jackpot PTSD. I think Jackpot to 13 is fine. Let's see how it goes then. No. No, when Vampires originally got reworked, the season that Miyamoto got Vamps to 2650 or whatever, Sabbath, Jackpot was around. Because King of Beggars came out at the same time as Milva. It was as soon as King of Beggars came out that Jackpot was like... I mean, before that, Jackpot was still also meta. But like... King of Beggars was what pushed Jackpot over the edge. Because remember when King of Beggars came out, it was like 3 power and like 1 or 2 less provisions and only required 9 times. So 1 time playing Savola would just pull it out of the deck. And then every time you played a tribute card, like Salamages, if you over profited from the refund, King of Beggars would boost in deck. So King of Beggars, Savola would play for like 40 points. Because you'd play Savola Frightener, and then King of Beggars would come out. It would be like 6 or 7 or whatever power or more. And then they would click it to spend all 9 coins that they have because they just got 9 coins back. And so it would be at 16, and then they would leader for another 9 points. Like 25 plus 12 plus 6. Yeah, easily 40 points. Like you'd be down 40 plus points and you'd win with 1 card. Yeah, especially was playing a lot of Salamander back then. He was playing like Townsfolk KOB. Yeah. So, again, there's been a lot of nerfs since then. So I think we can slowly give provisions to Jackpot and see how it goes. Igor Townsfolk? No. It's explored plenty. It's just binary. Or it's just if it's answered and your bronze is removed, you lose. Because the line pockets OTB Vice and preceding bounty economics in the Syndicate faction, it is difficult for me to assess the power of sub-meta decks, yes. But some of us who love playing meme decks have assessed their power, and they suck. Well, not all of them. But I explain why these and this are terrible. And this. Like, this can definitely win some games and feel OP, but then a lot of other games you just lose. After Exora nerf, apparently Vice is no longer as powerful as before. Main net deck got less than 40% win rate top 16. Many of SY archetypes are greedy rather than solitaire, long round abuse decks. Something I boost with caution, yes. As nerfs are no longer so compulsory, for example, a poll if to nerf Open Sesame or not roughly splits Polish Pro community in half. Really, let's concentrate on buffs again. Cleaver Muscle 5 to 6. Fallen Knight 4 to 5. This no. But surely refreshing deck rate to buff Firesworn? I mean, is like in Congregate, you drop the Knight and you immediately boost it to 5, 6, or 7 anyway. Like, that's not the problem with Fallen Knight. Consistency in drawing it is. So maybe boost thinning if you want to help Congregate. Because Madame is so busted? Maybe, Val, but you can play Madame without passive floor scenario and it's still good. What does scenario give you? Like 1 extra Seductress? And some coins? Meh. It's like an old school scenario and it's not worth 14p. Like, you'd have to nerf scenario by provisions. The other thing is, like, you can't tutor a scenario except with Bank, and Bank is way worse in round 1 than in round 3. And the new card that they printed can't be used to tutor Bank, the contract or whatever. So, like, you have to play non-Devo. If it was 12p, it would be, yeah, maybe. Maybe at 12p, it would be like, I either need Novigrad or I need this, and that would be fine. Pulling 6 to 5 provision costs? No, 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 no. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? No, 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 no. Lerio, you done goofed. No, no. I don't even have to read the paragraph. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Under no circumstances is this an okay change. Why? Because imagine if, like, I don't need any argument other than this. What if this card was a bronze and 5 provisions and you could play it 4 times in a game? And also never break. As in, if there was nothing for you to muzzle, you got 6 coins. Does anyone think we should make muzzle 5 provisions and a bronze and allow you to play 4 of them in a game? Anyone, raise your hand if you think Vigo's muzzle should be 5 provisions and a bronze and not brick ever. It'd be entertaining. Yeah, Val. Some people just want to watch the whole world burn. So, I don't know, Lerio, maybe I need a PhD to understand why you think this should be 5 provisions and a bronze and played 4 times in a game, and also give you coins if it's going to brick. This is why the idea of trying to buff an archetype like Pirate's Cove or Collusion is so, like, prone to error. Oh, also, it doesn't lock. So you can use the card you yoinked. I forgot. It would be a muzzle that doesn't lock. Holy crap. That's even... Oh my god. Yeah, it would be like... It's the Enslaved 6 leader. I understand you have to have tags on the board as a condition. But like, tags on the board as a condition is not hard when you have a 6 power card that has 2 tags and a 4 power card that's like giving you coins anyway. It's playing as a 7 for 4 or 8 for 4 if you have Jacques on the board that has 2 tags. And you have Siggy to put a bunch of tags on the board. Like, yes, there's a condition, but also, and a lot of times you don't draw those cards, but then that's frustrating to play also. That's not healthy gameplay. Oh, I have a BGF and a mutant in my hand. Guess I win the game. Warriors, sucks to be you. Anybody who wants to have their cards not get yoinked, sucks to be you. The other extra probably goes down. If you can't steal anything, it gives no coins. Okay, fine. But if you don't have the tags, you get a lot of coins. So my point still stands. It's still like, there are games where muzzle literally plays for 0. There are no games where pulling the strings plays for 0, unless you don't have a spender. But that's a problem with lots of Syndicate cards. Vendor should just get the tag back. Agreed, Haney. Just give Vendor the blind eye tag back. It would make Siggy more consistent because it's less likely to give you King of Beggars as an option. Because like blind eyes are not like, good blind eyes are not that common and not that playable. You know? And the ones that are playable aren't impactful enough for you to want to get them from Siggy, as opposed to Crown Splitters and cut-ups. And even Firesworn, like, and Salamander because Jacques. And Salamander has lots of good choices. It's really like Blind Eye that's a problem, because Tide Cloak you're getting from leader anyway. So King of Beggars, like having the Blind Eye tag, is very bad for Siggy and very bad for Collusion. If we can give someone blind eye tag, yeah. Sadly, it won't happen because CDPR washed their hands of the game and they will not make a single other change. Anybody saying otherwise is very high on copium. But I would love it if this got reversed. If this got reversed, oh my god. And keep pulling the strings at 6p. A card like pulling the strings at 6p, like, you should not be able to play pulling the strings from Shady Vendor at all. But Shady Vendor can contribute to pulling the strings tags. And I think that's the good middle ground. Mac by +1 power or -1 provision. I think +1 power is better. The card has too low a floor, but I don't know that it should be free. This card is like giga busted with Tide Cloak, by the way, if you can actually pull it off. It's so silly. Like, you click the coin and like 6 enemy units take damage. It's so funny. Like, I hated pulling the strings. As in, I love playing the deck, but I felt like I would be watching tournaments and I'd be like, how is this shit okay? Okay? Or just, I'd be playing a game like, oh my god, I'm so disgusting. What I'm playing is so unfair to my opponent. I'd be feeling bad for my opponent while I was playing it. I was literally crying through 2600, okay? I was wiping my tears with my massively engorged MMR. Even see much? Yes, it did. It did see. It was so dominant for like a season, and then it got nerfed. I remember, like, it was like there's a debate. Do you run Professor? Because if you play Professor, then your Drill and Junior combo can have a much higher ceiling. Because back then, Tunnel Drill, you could click it infinitely if you had played a Crime that round. And so what you would do is like, you would grab Drill and Shady Vendor, right? Or you would play Drill and Collusion in the same turn. And because you had a bounty on an enemy unit, you could like do, 12 damage, and then get the bounty money and do another like 6 or 9 damage all in the same turn, while you also got 9 coins and like damaged the highest enemy by 4 and boosted your lowest cards by 2, and you got 3 tokens. Like, there were like 40, 50, 60 point swings easily with one card being played. Yes, it was very, very much meta. No, I'm talking about El Calora's Pirates Cove deck. that one that took the every competitive scene by storm and was the reason for the nerf to pulling the strings. El Calora himself, even though that was his favorite deck in recent memory, like was on his stream the other day saying he doesn't think pulling the strings should be 5 provision. He said, guys, I love that deck. It was my favorite deck to play. It was so fun. It was very strong, but this change would be a bad idea. I think, Val, you're thinking of like 1 or 2 seasons before what I'm talking about. Shinmei list with 4 nerfs directed advice? Yeah. My list doesn't have anything directed advice. Because I think Ixora to 8 and Nilfgaard to 12 was pretty big nerf. And as we saw in the recent top 16, Syndicate wasn't dominating. They got 45% win rate. I'm not saying, or less than 40%. I'm not saying that this is... I mean, a lot of their losses were from Bluecoin. And Bluecoin is kind of miserable with that deck. But... yeah, Lauren remembers. Sometimes I, like... It's so helpful for me to see somebody else in chat be like, no, I remember this happened. Because I've been so, like, I've been doing Gwent 10 hours a day for like a year and a half now. And sometimes I feel so, like, disconnected when I hear a comment. And I'm like, did I just imagine all this? Like, start to question my reality. Sea Jackal +1 power boost would also affect power scope leader ability and Horde Jackpot's a very impactful change. I agree this would be an impactful change. I'm not sure it's needed. Again, Jackal's a very good card. Because when you play it, you instantly click on it anyway. So the +1 power wouldn't do much. But we also can't give it 1 provision, so... Jay was seeing lots of play in Masters. Maybe not like the annual Masters, but it was definitely in the qualifiers. Like, it came up, and then instantly it took, like, the competitive... Like, everyone was playing it, and then it got nerfed, and then it disappeared. Like, it went from, like, 0 to 60 to 100 to 0 in the span of, like, 2 months. Here? Ahmad? No, he says Sea Jackal +1 power boost. Because, like, we can't change how much it boosts by. We have no control over that. In GWENTfinity, all we can change is +1 power, +1 provision, or -1 power, -1 provision. That's it. So he's talking about GWENTfinity. Or the Balance Council, whatever. Mutant from 3 to 4, that would be an impactful... How to set the world on fire using just +1 power in Syndicate? That's the way. Yep. I'd like to see such a card change in action for someday for deck building reasons. By the way, Mutant has Salamander tag and could often be instantly copied with mutagen for full value. Yeah. I mean... he knows it. Balance Council FAQ. Shinmei's Balance Council Coalition post on Reddit. Oh, he didn't link to my video. One player could vote up for 12 balance decisions. Okay. My thoughts and approach. Entering GWENTfinity. It's in a good spot balance-wise, confirmed by... Okay, that's a very strict definition of balance, but fine. So we have a healthy patient and an unknown disease called the Balance Council. The main rule should be premium, no, sorry. First, do no harm. Primum, no, I don't know how to pronounce this. But do no harm. The Hippocratic Oath. It means we shouldn't go for very risky buffs, but even more importantly, we shouldn't over-nerf current meta decks. No, we should just address cards that are playing for the stupid amounts. We shouldn't nerf any decks. And, like, we shouldn't think that something is very strong just because it's very strong in the current meta dominated by Svalblood. Like, Svalblood notoriously can't remove, like, 7 cards. Okay? But they can do a lot of damage to a lot of cards, and they can play for a lot of points. That means that, like, tall point slamming decks are very good into Svalblood, but very bad into Ixora, which just got nerfed. So right now, this season is the season of tall point slamming decks. So we should be very careful about that. No Moshlink, it's time for drama. Just tweet at him. Be like, Lerio, what do you think of this? Please. Like, share. I want other people's thoughts and opinions. I want you to comment in Reddit. I want you to, like, I want to hear, like, you know, community people discussing it and tell me what they think of my, like, framework and of my specific suggestions or whatever. The only way to avoid everything with such numbers is not voting at all in the nerf brackets or using gimmicks. I really hope the number of negative chances is good in the system. I mean, I agree, because due to power creep, there are a lot of cards that are just way weaker than other cards. So one way to fix that is to, you know, have more buffs than nerfs possible. Another way to fix that is just to nerf all the strong cards, and so then the playing field is even again. I don't see what's wrong with that. I don't know why people are saying don't over nerf stuff. I don't care. Everything that came out in the last 2 years, nerf it twice. Then all the other stuff will inherently, relatively be buffed. Like, nerfing something is buffing everything else. I don't understand why people think that somehow nerfing will lead to a boring game. But maybe my definition of boring is different than theirs. Maybe people like seeing flashy big numbers, otherwise they'll be bored. Yaga is unsavable, Pharaoh. In the current system, it's unsavable. I really wanted the balance team to make it, you know, a rework, but Malaysian said Yaga is fine. His play rate is fine. He's a niche card, and it's fine for some cards to be niche. That's an almost direct quote from Malaysian. So his play rate is fine. He's playable but niche. It's not playable at all. It's literally a dead card. It's more dead than Wolfpack was. Gimmicks could mean nerfing the power of disloyal units, or choosing some. I'd like to understand better why they think that nerfing is a problem. Everyone nerfs when it comes to +1 provision is buffing leader abilities. Sure. Many comes to impactful buffs in faction overview, which doesn't mean that I plan to vote for all of them. My approach is rather conservative. We also have to respect pro players who would play Gwent Masters on community. Yeah. This is important. I took this into account as well. Second side icon better be brave now than a patch later. Sure. It's a balance. Some cards needing collective +1 power bomb or reverse would likely never reach the sweet spot. Yep. Norex is cool when controlled, so I welcome Shinmiri's Coalition Initiative and wonder how much influence it would really have amongst the whole Gwent player base. Yeah, but it's inherently biased to Shinmiri's pet, like, factions and archetypes, right? We'll take a look at Shinmiri's in a second. So let's look at Lerio's votes first. Vesemir, power increase. I don't see why not. Drummond Queensguard power increase. I don't know about this change. It makes it harder to proc. And I don't think it'll be impactful enough to see this. This card has 5 provisions, and you have to hit it for 2 damage. So you put this 5 for 5 down. Or is this 4 provisions right now? No, it's 5 provisions, 4 power. So he's saying 1 power. So you play a 5 for 5, so that next turn you can play a, you know, a 7 for 4, and then this becomes a 10 for 5. So if your opponent can remove a 5, then this plays, you know, for 5 points. And if they can't, then it plays for 10 points, possibly 15, 20. Like, it will be, it's like a low floor, high ceiling card that will make the decks you're playing against, if they can't remove a 5 because they don't have Rebuke or Coded Weapons / Assassination or Boiling Oil or you know, if they don't have a 5 provision bronze special that can answer this, I don't know. Can anyone think of such a faction that doesn't have 5 removal? I already listed Nilfgaard. Syndicate has Payday. NR has Boiling Oil. ST has Rebuke. Skellige has 1,000,001 raid cards. No, Sendek picks. Lauren's point is that Shinmiri is wildly biased against Syndicate. Because he's got 3 nerfs targeted as SY and he barely plays Syndicate. Four nerfs targeted at Syndicate. He also, like, he plays monster decks that, like, from a tournament, but I've never seen him try to make a new monster deck. Like, a competitive monster deck. I don't think I've ever seen Shin try to make a new monster deck, hybrid, archetype, whatever. Yeah. And Shin would be the first to admit his Syndicate is terrible. Like I don't have a lot of thoughts about how to make Symbiosis more interesting because I just can't stand that deck to begin with. Syndicate and Rope do not mix well. That's also true. So, like, what I'm saying is democracy is cool when controlled, so I welcome Shinri's Balance Coalition. But Shin wrote all the suggestions. He made the list. You know, he got feedback from his chat, but he's got a list of changes that he thinks, you know, we should all vote on. And he says, based on your date of birth, you pick, like, if you're in the first quadrant, you vote for these. So he's just basically leveraging an entire army of people to all vote for what he thinks is best. Right? After consulting with his chat, but still, what he thinks is best. I don't think any one person should have that kind of power. So instead, I gave you a framework. If you agree with the framework, then you're free to apply that framework yourself and make decisions after having thought about it, right? Through a prism of a logical framework, so to ensure that you're being somewhat objective. I taught you how to fish. Shinmiri tells you which fish to get and where to take it. I mean, am I exaggerating? A little bit. But you know what I'm saying? I don't like being told what to do, so I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, how I arrived at its conclusion, and maybe using the same framework, you can arrive at different conclusions. But at least your decisions will be based on a framework, so I'll know that you have thought through it and reasoned it, and are being somewhat objective. Rainforn power decrease, Kraken power decrease, Sov power decrease. Is this supposed to make it easier to kill Kraken? But how would that help? It would mean you only need 4 damage to kill it the turn after you played it because of rain, right? I don't know that Rainfarm needs a buff, but whatever. Like, the problem with Tucson is they gotta last say is so impactful for them, and being bled is so bad for them. I don't know that anything like this is gonna fix them. So I don't know about the impact of some of these changes. So -1 power, it's a good change, but it's like he needs -2 at least, or -4 really. What? Yaga is a 1 for 12. Can Sov have a floor of 8, please? Like, even at 8 power, Sov would play as a 16 for 12 point slam immune card. I think a 16 for 12 point slam immune card is perfectly fine. I'm not saying this needs to be 8 power to be balanced. I'm just saying I don't see a problem with it being changed to 8 power. Like, I think 8 power would put it in line with like a dozen other cards that are 12 provisions right now. Probably wouldn't see play anymore, but 10 I think is very fair. 11 is like still OP. 10 is probably still OP too. 9 maybe? It would be 17 for 12 at 9 power. With a squirrel. Like, it would still have a higher floor with a bear or something. And Care Troll is still a card. Provisions increases. Mutagenerator, Jackpot, and Uprising. I don't think provision increase is the way to buff Uprising. It's not like you were trying to fit more cards in Uprising and you couldn't. The problem with Uprising is this complete lack of control. So I guess this would let them put an extra Boiling Oil in the deck. But you don't want to play specials, you want to play units. Uprising, like, I don't know. I don't think Uprising is going to be made viable with this change. Or 2 more provisions or whatever. I disagree with Sandor. I could not disagree more with pulling the strings. I think this would be the worst change possible. Okay. Let's look at Shinmiri's suggestions. So, before we do that, I should probably just wrap up this since we were making a YouTube video. Anyway, the TLDR is go check out Lerio's post. I'll put a link in the description. Read it. It's definitely worth the read. Also, read everything else Lerio writes. He's such a valuable member of the community, shares all of his research and insight for free. Lots of tools on his website that will help you be a better Gwenter. And overall, I agree with 80 to 90% of what he said about the changes. I disagree with some of his specific votes, but I think that everyone should read his entire post because it is really helpful for thinking through the ramifications of changes and how to approach balance. You love the Ivo with 32. Yeah, I mean he's posting like extreme examples, but yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. I know this was a long video. Please like and subscribe. Cheers.